And we're live, everybody. Hello, everybody.
Hello. Season 4, Musty Wargamers season finale, episode 18.
And we got Brad's in the chat room right now. Hey, hi, Brad. Hi.
Hello, Brad.
And Dan. We got Dwayne, Curtis, and Bill. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Brady Bunch edition.
Thank you for everyone for joining us from this season, joining us for the final episode for our topic discussions tonight, and to get to see everybody and say hello again before we say goodbye for a little while, just at least in this format. We'll probably still talk to each other, but
I know that Dan and I are trying to set ourselves up for a game here sometime within a month.
Yeah, this month. I swear we're doing it.
Nice.
What are you guys going to play? Is it Fantasy Battle we're planning on doing?
I don't know. It's your choice.
Decided.
I still want to do that 15 millimeter thing before we do Fantasy Battle.
You want to do the 15?
Yeah, just
okay. We could do it.
I got sucked into that. You guys were hot and heavy on that, and I want to give that a try. But
Armies of Arcana, you got the 5th edition, right?
Yeah, I got the new one. Yeah,
okay, we can do that.
5th?
Hey,
yeah.
All right, we'll do 5th edition. All right.
Well, you'll have to teach me.
All right, so how's everybody doing? Let's Palmer, what are you up to?
Oh, well, I just kind of put some stuff up today. I just finished my my challenge for May, but I kind of did it late and had a couple of miniatures that I put on both the Facebook page and on video. But other than that, not doing a whole lot. I haven't been hobbying as much, and that's why it took me a little longer to get to those last 2 miniatures. I'm planning on doing some burros and badgers and other projects. Not taking off the hobbying at this point in the summer yet. But not doing too much else. Same old besides that. Looks like we also have some folks that have jumped in the room. Looks like we've got Ian is in and said hello. The Diomede. Hello, Ian. Thanks for joining.
All right, here we go.
And as far as that's my update. As far as that, I opened this up because I had this case that I'd opened at one point, I think in the beginning of the season. I got this for Father's Day, these 3 little scotches. These are way too fancy for me. Like, I don't really know that much about them. But my wife and kids got me this as a gift. And so I opened this like teeny tiny bottle. And it says Brick Luddick Bear Barley 2008. And it's an Islay single malt Scotch whiskey. Rusty, you can say what the tones are and like all of that stuff. I'll drink it.
Isla Scotch, Scott Pete, a Luddick.
It's not very dark compared to some of the scotches I have. It's very light. Oh, very nice. I think that's a bit salty, if that makes sense.
If it's an Isla, it should have a little bit of brine wafting through there someplace.
Which is kind of nice.
All right. Dan, you're next in line. What have you been up to?
Well, I just kind of getting out of my busy season for work. So been doing a little bit of painting. I finished up, guess it's behind me, but I'm not going to grab it because you can never see it anyway. I finished the general for my Bretonian army. It was a conversion. I used the Green Knight horse and legs, and then a torso that was questing Knight standard bearer, I believe, and then an arm from a Knight of the Realm. And I'll be putting a video up in the next couple of days here. I'm really pretty happy with how that came out. And then this last weekend, I went to about an hour and 20 minutes from me in Omaha, Nebraska. They had a bolt action tournament that they do once a year. And I called off last year. So Mark from Smitty M14, I don't know if any of you guys remember him.
Oh, yeah.
That was his channel. His life's gotten a lot busier, so he hasn't been putting up videos for a couple years. But we still get together and game a little bit. But him and I went down it's a 2-day tournament, so we drove down and back both days, and you had 3 games on Saturday and 2 on Sunday, and there were, I think, 36 people there participating, and people from Minnesota and Colorado and Nebraska and Iowa and Kansas and Illinois, and it was a lot of fun. The tables are always really top-notch, beautiful tables, and everybody there is really great. It seems like the bolt action tournaments are never. That's the only one I go to, but the people are competitive, but it's fun. And there was a kid that was about 13 and a guy that was, I think, about 76. He said, and everything in between. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun. You get to see a lot of different kinds of armies you'd never seen before, and yeah. So I'm not that competitive. I don't really build a power list, and I build what I like to play and what I like to paint, and anyway, we had a great time. It's 5 games in 2 days. I think that's as many games as that's more games than I played last year. so that was refreshing, and probably the most fun I've ever had at that tournament. I think I've gone maybe 4 or 5 years now. So
what's the name of that tournament?
It's Bug Eater.
Oh,
Bug Eater GT.
Okay.
It's called Bug Eater because it used to be the mascot for Nebraska used to be they were the Bug Eaters instead of the Cornhuskers, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. They're a college team, so that's where it comes from.
Nice.
So that's what I did.
That's more than what I've had since.
I know.
As far as games.
Same here. I think I played 4 or 5 games last year total, or maybe in the last, like 16, 18 months. So that was nice. And all the restrictions have kind of gotten dropped, and people are getting vaccinated, and so things are kind of, at least here in the Midwest, are kind of back to normal. And so we had a good time. That's what I did.
All right. Bill.
Hey, I've been actually not doing very much gaming at all recently. About 2 weeks ago, I played a BattleTech game after I'd say about a 25-year hiatus. And dug some old relics out of the closet and went to the game store and played. It was a lot of fun, and the rules haven't changed that much either. So I was pretty happy with that, since I didn't want to relearn a new set of rules. Now, also, I've been gaming with my wife here at home periodically, and I have the strange way of saying it, but she has bought more miniatures this year than I have.
How is that possible?
So, how many Wargamers can say that their spouse has bought more miniatures?
Are you guys in an escalation of who's going to have the biggest army to beat the other one? That's what happens sometimes.
Are you gonna bet me, honey?
Uh-oh, she's wanting to bet me. I don't know, but she bought me a whole bunch of miniatures for Valentine's Day, and well, how many armies did you buy me?
I don't know, like 6 or something.
6 armies.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
6 armies,
They're
and they're all
on
Saga
sale.
armies. So, she says they're on sale, but still, they're all pewter armies.
Well, I talked them into like 85% off.
It's fantastic, And also, I've been printing stuff with my 3D printer. So, been making terrain. My last project I just finished was some river tiles that I can lay out for a river. So, pretty proud of that. And I posted up on the Musty Wargamers page yesterday. So. That's where I'm at for a game.
Nice.
Was it those rivers, Bill, that you did?
Oh yeah,
Man, those were awesome. Those looked awesome. Yeah.
And you printed those out, right?
I printed out the rivers. And that was the bases of them, and then I glued sand texture on the sides, and then painted them. Painted the blue area and then the dirt areas on the sides. And then I went back and put, how many layers? 5 or 6 layers of Mod Podge over the blue area to make it look like a water effect, but without being water effect. So
That's a good idea.
It was nice and ripply looking. And then I put some foliage and foliage and flocking on it, and there it was. I got those. Now I was gonna display them without the trees, but Andrea was like, "No, you got to put some palm trees out there." So I'm like, "Okay." So.
Yeah, the palm trees make it all feel like it's in the South Pacific someplace, or someplace out there in the jungle. All right. Anything else?
Is a White Russian.
Oh,
okay.
I was going to say that. Those are great.
I was going to say that looks like a malt or something.
Oh yeah.
Dwayne Scarnier, what you up to?
What's the story? I've been mucking around, buying some more of the new plastic mix. A local store got some of the Force Wave packs in, so I bought some more mix. I've been trying to paint up. It's like a kind of a second-hand store model shop we have here, and I managed to get some of the old Raoul Partha miniatures and blister packs. So I'm trying to build an old vintage trinary. So between what I bought and the veteran players in my area, I'm going to make a trinary. I'm just going to get some elementals. I have a couple of mix spare that I'm swapping with some of the guys, like a Merlin and stuff. There's a couple of them that don't fit in. I'm going to try and make a Clan Jade Falcon trinary. And I've been messing around with that, and I've taken up fishing since the last time I was on your show. So I've started messing around with that. So I'm trying to get myself out and about while the weather is good here, trying to see if I can land a sea bass. I've only just started, but we'll get there eventually. We'll see how it goes. And tonight I will be chipping away at my Jameson IPA edition as my Musty Wargaming drink. That's me.
All right. That's everything?
Well, I thought I'd keep it short and sweet so everyone else has a chance,
Okay. I'd like a little bit of Baltec. All right, Curtis.
What have I been up to?
Oh, yeah.
Well, as far as the hobby's concerned, what's that?
Hobbies.
What's that?
Sounds like Palmer's breaking up on us.
Yeah, he's in and out. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you fine.
Yep. Hear you fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hobby-wise, I've been doing a lot of different things. A lot of painting, as you can imagine.
We got Max Headroom in here. Go ahead. Go, Curtis. Go ahead.
I got a lot of painting going on, of course, with the commissions. I can show you a couple of them here. I got some. Let's see how well that shows up.
Are those 15s?
These are
10s. Okay.
Yes.
10 mil Old Guard Grenadiers.
Oh, yeah.
On the march. I got a whole bunch of them. I got 4 bases of those. I've got 12 bases of line infantry with their company distinctions. Boy, is that bright. Which is basically the color of their pom-poms. As you can see, I've got them all done up. They're all waiting for basing. And I've got a small little detachment of cavalry. I'm always proud of my cavalry.
Now, who makes those?
These are by Magister Militum.
Okay.
And
wow, those are nice.
Thanks. They are fantastic models to work with. And it's a modest size commission. I'm taking a little bit longer than I should on these, a little bit behind schedule with all my commissions because I have been busy with a lot of other things, such as roofing and so on and so forth. There's a little general's base. But this commission should be done in a matter of days because it's primarily basing. And then I've got some Victrix British World War II 12 mil to do. I've got some 10 mil Rhodesian vehicles, which were 3D printed to do. I got 30 plus of those. Tons more Napoleonic Magister Militum for Russians and Prussians and more French Cav. And some projects I'm really excited to do, which are small. I've got 4 figures from a manufacturer called Bronze Age Miniatures. Have you ever heard of them?
I haven't.
These are 32 millimeter Vikings, and they're beautiful sculpts. I don't have them yet, but they're for a customer over in Finland that I'm going to be doing, and I'm really excited to do them because I can take my time with them and base them, and they're going to look a little bit better than my typical what I normally do because they're bigger and I can take my time. And there's some other little projects here and there. My own stuff I haven't gotten to. Been playing a lot of Pathfinder, of course. Hey, folks, there it is. I love it. Always got time for some role-playing action. Pathfinder, of course, I play like a couple times a week, hopefully, ideally. And that's about it. Game-wise, that's where I'm at.
All right. And your drink of tonight will be coffee or tea or.
Well, I've got a big mug of water as usual. That's the tradition when I join you guys. Keeps me safe and sound as well as you guys. And I also have a nice flavored vape tonight. This is, I believe, French vanilla cream. It's very good.
Huh.
So that's my flavor for the night. Oh, there it is. I got that on my shelf too. Pathfinder First Edition.
Yeah, it's on my shelf too.
Yep, good. You're a good man.
All right. I have been, we've started back up playing Gaslands again. Got that going. And we've done some Battletech, and I got a game tomorrow, Battletech, to do. So got that happening. So I have a few things going on. It's like I haven't been really spending any time on the painting table because behind me over here, see it right there, I'm down to the last 2 turns, which I'll finish tonight. And that board game will be done. And it's been 52 turns playing that board game.
Wow.
When you do a turn a day, that's things taken up by table since April. It's gotta go. And I have the video set up, and they're now going to go into August. So I got video set up for August. So if you see me disappear, I'm still going to be around for a couple of months. But yeah, so that's what I've been up to. And my drink tonight is Glenlivet.
Nice. It's a good one.
This is the cheap stuff here.
I forgot to mention mine.
Jameson.
Don't leave me out, guys.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we got kind of an appley pear kind of smell to this here. Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, since we all have mentioned Battletech tonight already.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we have to all say cheers, Battletech. There we go.
Jeff's Model Garage says, "You guys got booze. You should watch us because we typically do."
Every time. We always have booze, Jeff.
Yeah, it's like on the icon for our show for a reason.
I know Jeff said he's coming towards Des Moines here sooner or later. He's got a run to do towards Des Moines for something.
Oh.
We've had this discussion before, but I've had to kind of limit myself on this show because sometimes as a host, it can get a little out of hand.
Yeah, Palmer hasn't realized that you can sip and just take a little bit of your whiskey instead of like slamming it back. And then next thing you know, you're talking really hard. Yeah, it's like,
I don't understand. What is a sip?
that bottle of Woodford Reserve he has isn't going to drink itself. Let's be honest.
Yeah, this is true. This is true.
all right, let's see. We got a few comments coming in here real quick. Somebody said, "Oh my gosh," Brad said, "Palmer is working on BattleTech. Is this true?" Or you just breaking them out because everybody else had their BattleTech stuff out?
Yeah, I actually haven't broken them out in a long time. I was actually kind of impressed when I put them out. I was like, I kind of like these that I did like 3 years ago. I haven't seen them in a long time. But
Well, it's a game that you can play every once in a while.
yeah, it's not. It's popular locally. Brad included. I know Brad plays, but there are folks that definitely play here. Actually, I can just pull it out again here.
Into
But
the dark side, Palmer.
yeah,
If you
these
want to.
these they're actually I kind of enjoy the way those look. I really these are the older style.
Yeah.
And I think I may have done an oil wash on them, which gives them a bit of a shiny
Kind of
and then
Kind
dark.
of a rust look. You got
contrast.
a grasshopper and a marauder there.
Well, and I have them, even though they're the Lao sort of, I believe, right? Or sort of faction, like were the ones that I was doing. This is not the typical green. Like this is Tau Seti or something. I have to go back and remember what the name of the faction was, but they're like more of a browny gold look, even though they're that Lao, I think. Is that the correct name of the faction, Lao?
The Capellan Confederation. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but I kind of like that the oil wash, putting the dark panel lines in there, and they're a little shinier, a little bit of contrast with that oil wash. I think it came out kind of nice.
They look good, man. Oh.
Yeah,
They do look good. That's for sure.
yeah. So I don't know how they play, but
Well, the grasshopper is actually a pretty decent infighter. It's got some range to it. The marauder is definitely a mech that's been around since the Star League eras, and it can be a brawler or a fire support mech. Depends on what role you want to toss it into.
I find it interesting with some of the mechs, though. They play differently in the video games and the tabletop. Like, for instance, the Marauder, I like it on the tabletop, but when I'm playing MechWarrior 5, which is being released out on Steam last month, and I've been playing a fair chunk of that, I don't actually like the Marauder because it's where a lot of its weapon options are in its arms. So it's very,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? When you're playing a first-person shooter, it's kind of different how... It's interesting how individual designs interpret differently across different media, sort of.
Yeah. Then we had the max headroom moment for Palmer there.
yeah. Well, if that happens again, I'm going to have to go to cellular again, like I did in the last show. Like I thought I was set for this show, and all of a sudden that happened. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
we got an awesome and a Thunderbolt. That's are two good mechs. I love the Thunderbolt.
Rusty and I are still amateurs after all this time. This is the fourth season. We're still crackling out and coming out of. It's almost like a comedy thing now, but at this point.
Well, yeah, every once in a while you have to go to the space station and go back and say, "Yep, I wonder why I don't like being up here. I had to go back home."
So do you want to finish going through the comments, Rusty, or do you want to start?
Yeah,
on
I'm
the
gonna
first
catch
topic?
up real quick. I only got a few here. We're just, oops, I lost myself. There we go. And there was a few. Oh, you were okay. Already home. So you went. So Jeff, you must have came and went. So it must have been a 1 day thing. You're in Ireland. Well, it means yes. It's early in the morning.
It is early in the morning, and I'm on whiskey. That is correct. In the Republic, Curtis keeps thinking I'm in Northern Ireland, which I find amusing.
It's just like for me. Let's see, what time is it now? It would be going on 37 and a half hours I've been up now. So
No matter what time of the day you contact Dwayne, he's always the same. It's always like 1 in the morning. What's the crack? 8 in the morning. What's the crack? 12 p.m. What's the crack, guys?
Well, I'm still in my early 30s, so I get up with a bit of a bounce. You know what I mean? It's still like, hey.
Yeah, I got those 2 mechs I was talking about in our last show. Well, they spent a week in the Simple Green because I forgot about them. And I just pulled them out yesterday, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot I put them in the Simple Green. I better pull them out. So I washed them up and dry them. So now I got to glue my fingers together and put them together. The full starter set of BattleTech, Curtis.
Yeah, it's not it's the one with I think it has 9 mechs in it. That they have like 2 starters. One is like just really basic rules, and the other starter set has the full-on rules for the mechs.
Yeah,
and like 9 miniatures and so on and so on. I bought the bigger one, but I haven't painted them. They're still sitting on my shelf, but I keep looking at it. You know, I'd love to get back into that and play it, and just haven't had time. Too much.
Yeah, I painted all those up for someone else, not me, because I'm still waiting for everybody else in my family got their Kickstarter first because they were smart enough to not say, hey, deliver it all together. So
I was about to ask, did you go for split shipping?
Yeah, I went single shipping.
Jesus.
I wasn't.
I would have lost the plot by now.
Yeah.
My wife wants to get into BattleTech too. She overheard one of the stories that I was listening to on YouTube about the clans, and she's like, I want to do Clan Wolverine. I'm like, well, honey, that's a clan that's been destroyed.
No, they weren't.
Not in my world.
They became the Minnesota tribe.
That's like when you just sort of do whatever you want, pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, they end up the remnants of the Clan Wolverine escaped, became the Minnesota tribe, and then became Comstars.
Wow.
Uh-oh. Jihad time, huh?
Uh-huh. So that whole jihad going against and destroying the Inner Sphere and the clans, guess who came back and take care if they destroyed everything in their path?
So that's Wolverine, huh? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's all fun. It's all fun and games till the big guy comes back.
Yeah, I got the invasion, the clan invasion for her. So
Oh, nice.
she's got the clan, a few clan miniatures. I've got to get the painting those.
All right, so I think we're caught up with all of our comments, and
Cool.
we
So,
can
Rusty,
move.
which one do you want to do tonight first, as far as the topic?
We got the one that you brought.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do that one first.
All right. Well, this could be quick and easy, or we could have some tangents like we typically do. Who knows? But basically, I just thought it'd be interesting to get people's opinion, because it feels to me like over the last gradually over 15 years, like we've seen more and more explosions of games coming out, and whether it be crossovers or just typical tabletop games, like it's just exploded in every direction, both fictional and historical. And although we see like additions to rule mechanics, like notable additions that set games apart in certain ways, there's so many games coming out, and I just kind of wondered what people's thoughts were on when you find yourself buying new games, or even just liking new games that you're seeing coming out. How much of it is because you're seeing something new, like that you couldn't do before with games that you already have, or that you know exist already, like as far as the rules go? And how much is it that you're getting it because of like the plastic and the shiny and the hype and the new models, and so I'd be just kind of interested in people's thoughts on that. So Rusty, who would like to go first? Do we want to do a round robin? Like, I think at the screen it's Rusty at the top, and we could go around clockwise, or however people would like to do it.
Well, I'll I'll just do a little quick blurb for myself, and then we'll go on to Bill. We'll just do a big circle.
Mhm.
How's that? We'll do the donut run. So a lot of times it's I always look at it as like there's always that the eye candy. That's the first thing that always pops in. It's like you see something, ooh, that's flashy thing, And that's the one thing that always attracts you first. And then it's like, okay, what's this all about? And then you start trying to figure out what they got. Hey, the new mechanics, they're like Malifaux. We only have play with cards. You don't throw dice. It's like, what? The first time I heard that, that type of thing. So it's one thing. There's always a little twist at something that maybe brings you in one way or the other. It's either the eye candy that first attracts your attention and it goes to something else. That's my little blurb on it. Bill.
I have to say, in a way, it's eye candy, but it's mainly because, unfortunately, I watch a lot of YouTube. And I
Yeah.
reports and I go, ooh, shiny! I want to get into that. Like my last acquisition was the Stargrave book. I don't know if I'll play Stargrave in a near future, but I saw some battle reports and I saw some YouTube shows about it, and I just had to go, ooh, shiny! I'm after that. And for me, that's the main thing that draws my attention is YouTube reviews and shows on YouTube.
I have to agree with you there because many times I've been sucked into that. Dan?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think you're right too. Between YouTube and then like Kickstarters is kind of the other thing too, where as you kind of maybe you hear about it through a Facebook group or a YouTube video, or somebody does kind of a shout out for the Kickstarter, and so you check it out, and then as the hype builds for it, sometimes then sometimes you can get talked to into a game that's maybe not even your thing, but it's like sort of that FOMO, fear of missing out. Wow, look at all the stretch goals, and
Oh, yeah.
But to what catches my eye initially definitely is the eye candy, but it's tabletop gaming, of course. So that's what catches my eye first is the miniatures, and I'm probably a miniature painter more than a player, just partly because of my work and my location. And so if there look like interesting, fun miniatures for me to paint, then that's enough. The ruled mechanics really, for me personally, come in so much later because it takes me an eon and a half to paint an army, which I enjoy. I enjoy the journey of that, so I don't mind. And I may or may not get a game in. I've got two 500-point Lord of the Rings armies painted, and I've never played a game. It's just the studying, the deciding what to buy, the building your army, the thinking about it is, to me, almost as much fun, which is good because I can hardly get a game in ever anyway. So, but as far as what would keep me playing, like, see, Bolt Action is a game that I actually play. That's probably the only game that I can say I know inside and out. I've played, hundreds of games, or 100 to 200 games probably, and that keeps me coming back because not only do I like the genre, but I also like the mechanics, and I like the actual playing of the game is fun. And so I tend to not get sucked into new things because I know it's going to be such a process for me to collect the miniatures and paint, and so that's why, like Palmer and Rusty know that I've kind of gone retro. I go with things that are already out there. It's a closed system. The miniatures are out there. It's a closed system. And I jump in on those. So that's kind of where I come from. The games themselves, the rules, that's probably the last thing for me. So
Okay.
that's kind of where I'm coming from, but that's partly because of where I'm at.
Let's do a Tokyo drift around the bend to Dwayne.
All right, we need to play a little extra music for this.
Little Gaslands.
A little Gaslands music. Give me a second here. I'll bring it up.
So you're asking, like, buying into game systems because of new miniatures or new rules, I take it that's boiling your question down to its bare bones.
Well, and also, just do we find that the new systems coming out are actually mostly offering new rules, like in our experience, like or like when we're seeing them come out, or are they mostly like what we've seen as far as the rules for the most part, but just new packaging?
It depends. There's certain. It depends upon your wargame background. Like for me, I can kind of key into this a bit. So, for anyone who doesn't know, I've been playing solely Games Workshop products since about 1997. So I've gone through various editions of it, and there's some I really like, and some I don't. And fairly recently, in the past 2 to 3 years, I'd say, I've gotten onto BattleTech, and because of that is I don't like how 40k plays at the moment, and I'm not a fan of the aesthetic, their in-house aesthetic of their style of sculpting that Games Workshop are doing. That's not to say the miniatures are bad. Just myself personally, I don't really like the look of the miniatures. The aesthetic I kind of like is sort of early 2000s when stuff was more hand sculpted and it was different. It was a different sort of aesthetic. So I find myself with the dilemma of I don't like how a miniature line looks, and I don't like how a rule set works. And I found with, as others were saying, Bill and such, these new box sets for BattleTech, I was first introduced to BattleTech in the early 2000s, and I really, really, really enjoyed how the game system played. I really enjoyed it, but I wasn't a fan of the miniatures. So when they started bringing out the new plastic miniatures in 2018, thereabouts with the new box sets, I was like, perfect. This is what I was looking for. I was waiting for new plastics and new sculpts to come out. And, I was jet set at that point. I had contemplated where 3D printing had gotten to that stage as well, where it was like if the games company wasn't going to fulfill that role itself, I got into the stage with my other war games where it was like, I need to find something else, something a bit more granular in how it plays or a bit more detailed. Because this, in my opinion, there's a bit of a trend going on where a lot of stuff is being streamlined, and I just found the style of gameplay that I liked wasn't being catered for. So I went looking for it elsewhere, and that's how I ended up where I was. Regarding Kickstarter, some of the guys were talking about Kickstarter. You can go crazy for that fear of missing out. I think it was Dan was saying. I never really got into Kickstarter until BattleTech came on. Because I specifically stayed away from it because I have a friend who is crazy for Kickstarter and stretch goals, and he's forever buying stuff. So I sort of was like, I think I'll stay away from Kickstarter. But I went a bit crazy. I decided I'm going the whole hog on BattleTech, so I went a bit mad on it. So the Wave 2 unboxing, when it does come, will be interesting to say the least. But there's so much, like there really is. I like the look of bolt action, but you can only put your resources in so many baskets. So I'm shifting priorities at the moment myself in my own sort of wargaming journey. I'm shifting stuff from one place to another, and enjoying it.
Yeah, well, that's what Dr. Phil says. If GW doesn't meet your needs, then you'll look for it elsewhere. So on to Curtis.
Pretty much.
Like, who has the cat?
Curtis, how about what are your thoughts on the topic?
That would be me with the cat.
Okay.
Well, you guys know I'm in all kinds of hobbies. There's my board games and miniatures and my role playing. But looking at miniatures, the first thing is always going to be the visual, the eye. Like just today, I was looking at Facebook and I'm scrolling down as I do, and I saw another one of those battle reports put out by the Perrys. I think it's the Perrys. It's either Warlord or Perrys. They put out these fantastic pictures of tabletops laid out beautiful terrain to die for. And of course, all these masses of soldiers marching. I think it was an American War of Independence, Lexington and Concord. And looking at that, it immediately draws me, and I say to myself, I should do that. I should do that again. I've done it before, but I should get back into that. And that's because it's all about the visual. Miniatures gaming it's all about the visual, and these companies know that. It's all marketing. But with me, being the way I am with commissions, it doesn't pull me as much. I'm more like Dan. I'm very much a painter first. When I look at models and see them, I think about painting them and how enjoyable it would be. The game rules come second because honestly, I've played just about everything, and it doesn't have that magic it used to for me. It's like I've played BattleTech back in the 90s. I played 40K back in the 80s. All this stuff, it doesn't pull me as much, the rules. But that said, I'm very selective when it comes to rules that I want to use when I play with my miniatures. Very selective. So in other words, I'm not very easily tempted by all this stuff that comes out. I've been through that, done it. I got my board games. They keep me happy. So, but I agree with you about the visual.
But with that, so Curtis, by you saying that, could I sort of gather that in a lot of ways from what you're seeing with the rules coming out, you're not seeing like a dramatic number of like new innovative things that are capturing you when it comes to new rules coming out?
You know what you see a lot of? Gimmicks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of gimmicky things like new ways to use your dice, or hey, we're going to add a deck of cards to this game, or chit pulls or something to make it different. But at its essence, it's still the same thing, just with gimmicks.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see through that. It doesn't really interest me as much. That's what I see as far as rules.
Well, there's only so much you can really do, right? I mean, it's still pushing miniatures around a physical table.
Yep.
There's only so many ways to corral that.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, I consider myself very old school with my miniatures games. Just straightforward, intuitive game systems, nothing gimmicky. That's what I like.
Miniature games, nothing can really be added to miniature games at this point. Miniature games are now basically what I should say. We've hit the plateau.
The wheel has been designed and bedained with all the little rhinestones and all the fun.
Well, you
bells and
wonder,
whistles.
after a while, how many more ways can you do it, right?
Move a little sculpture
exactly.
around.
That's why I like to go back to some of the old systems, and then if there's something you didn't like, you can house rule it, and there you go. Because
well, the reason I actually, in a lot of ways, I brought this up in my head about games that I have never really played before, and that is, I don't really have any experience with naval-based games. And I know actually Ian's in the house and in the comments, and I know he likes naval-based games, and I know other folks on here do too.
Ooh, Rusty.
And I've seen, I know Rusty's played everything. Like I know it seems like it. And I talk to Rusty a lot, so I know that. I know, like, let's say, I know Curtis has played a lot too, but I know more just because of what being on the show and stuff of what Rusty's played. So I know he's played just about everything. I haven't. I honestly don't have a real large breadth of every single type of miniature game. And when I was thinking about the naval games, that I noticed that like Warlord games and a lot of companies are putting naval games out in the last couple of years, like 2 to 4 years. And there seems to be a resurgence since I've gotten back into tabletop gaming, a resurgence of naval games recently. And so I kind of thought to myself, because I've also at times looked into them, and I thought to myself about looking at some of the older school ones, and even like things like Harpoon, and I believe it's called, and stuff like that. And I was thinking, and it got me thinking, like, when these new games come out and I see a lot of cool models like on YouTube, like you guys were saying, there is a draw to it. But then I also think to myself, are these really new? Like in the sense of the kind of rules that they are, or is this just repackaging and from the vantage point of people that know them, not me? And so that's kind of why I thought of this more generic subject, but I was really thinking about the naval games and the context of it. For me personally, what I'd say is I probably am a little bit of everything, in the sense that I get attracted with the eye candy, like you guys said, and in particular, the Marvel game would be one I would bring up. Like, I already had a Marvel game. I had a whole set of miniatures of Marvel miniatures by Night Models, but then when the new game came out, repackaging and the models, like I didn't even need to see the rules, to be honest. I was like, basically, because of my love of the comic books as a kid, I was just going to buy that stuff for sure. But then like Burrows and Badgers, as much as I like the miniatures, I really could play in a lot of ways Mordheim, if I wanted a kind of a adventure game with a skirmish band that you build. But the one thing I really liked about it is, and it may seem like a gimmick, Curtis, but they added, they use polyhedral dice depending on the size of the animal in the game. And the whole mechanics are like, you'll use like a 4-sided die for a bird versus like a 12-sided die for a badger, and they have to fight each other. But then like they have this really cool mechanics where you have a greater chance of getting a critical hit with smaller dice size. So like, although overall you're at a disadvantage, you have a greater chance as a small little bird to maybe get some sort of critical hit. And so they do some interesting things. And to be honest, in a lot of ways, it kind of sold it for me. Like I was thinking about it. I took a year to buy miniatures, after 2 years to buy it after I bought the rule book. I ruminated forever. And then like I saw like Rusty and Dan and like all these other people looking into it and talking about it. I finally said, well, talked to a friend locally and said, let's just do this. But it was really the rule piece and seeing some things that were different than what I already have, that in that case did make me actually kind of definitely do it. So I think it's definitely a bit of both, but I am skeptical, like kind of like you guys have said, that a lot of the stuff that's coming out, there's just so much that it's far and few between that we're really seeing something new. Like I would agree with those that have had that sentiment, just in my limited sort of view of the stuff I've seen.
Yeah, there's, like you brought up Burrows and Badgers, and it's many different sizes of dice. That brings up like if you ever seen Stargrunt. I don't know if you ever heard of that game. It does the same kind of mechanics where you have different, the D4 all the way up to the, I think it's the D12 that you can use. And so it's similar. You're just taking a same mechanic and you're just applying it to a different genre. That's all you're really
furry
doing.
Animal instead of
instead of a guy in power armor or the little the guy in the power armor is running around with a D12. Well, the little guy with the little street rat, he's running around with the D4. So sorry, buddy. But
Dungeons and Dragons used to, that's the way that was. Like a dagger does 1 to 4 or whatever. I don't remember. It's been so long.
I go to war
with
my D4.
And definitely that is true. I mean, definitely they didn't create the dice for the game, and they've been used. But I think I hadn't seen too many games. I know Rusty mentioned one. I hadn't seen too many games that use this in the way that they're using it, like that sort of use the dice as differentiators for the models against each other. And that was kind of new for me. But like, again, like, is there anything really new under the sun? Because Rusty pointed out something I haven't seen before, and apparently it's been used.
There's somewhere down the line, someone has thought of something, and then somebody's like, that's a great idea. I'm going to take that idea and then change it to make it my idea, and I'm going to paint the wagon wheel from green to blue, pretty much. And I'm going to put little alternating spokes that are going to be orange or something like that.
Do you ever think, when will they be able to? I mean, how long can you keep coming out with new games? There's only so many genres and twists on the genres, and then skirmish or campaign or large scale. But pretty soon, I'm less tempted by games anymore, unless like Burrows and Badgers was kind of cool for me. It hit because it's a skirmish game, so there wasn't a lot of investment, and the rules were 1 book and not that expensive, and the miniatures are gorgeous, and it's something a little bit different, with the animals. Blood and Plunder kind of does its little bit of it fills a niche, but you start to run out of these niches within niches after a while. I think.
And I think there's part of it is that you have these companies, like you go back to the 90s, you had a lot of companies they had their niche. I was a company that was in my own niche for a little while. And then you're the flavor of the day, and you disappear. Right. And then everybody thinks that game is gone. Is that you have a new generation comes along, and it's like they never even knew about this game existed. And then somebody's like, I knew that game existed. And they'll take the mechanics of that and then apply it to their new. And they say, it's new. Hey, we got something new. And then It's like, wow, that's so cool. That's so new. And it's like maybe the veteran down there is like, that ain't new. That's old. The Curtises of us, the world, that have been around for the block for a while go, that ain't new. Come on, give me something new. But
well, and you know what? Go ahead, Dwayne.
No, I was just going to agree with Rusty. It seems to be like even what Dan was talking about. It seems to be a lot of rebranding of things for newer generations that are coming in. I was just about to say it before you said it there, Rusty, where it's a case of more veteran players are going to look at stuff and go, hey, this reminds me of this game system with that mechanic from that game system and this from over here that have been put together, repackaged, and hey, it's brand new. It's the latest thing. But it's, for me, as I've like gone through Wargame, and I see there tends to be trends, like the new hotness will come out, some sort of, like I remember hex-based, click-based stuff was really big in the early 2000s and stuff like that. And, there's always a sort of a trend that goes along and then it dies off and then the next new thing comes along. And there's a lot of that seems to happen in the industry. From what
I think there's actually room for innovation in the industry. And actually, I'm surprised at Palmer for saying otherwise, especially with Saga and their paddleboard systems.
I was being a little facetious, actually. That's why I was laughing during it. But yeah, I agree. But actually, I think I personally do think there's always room for innovation. I just think it happens very far and few between. Like, to be honest, I think innovation happens, and when it does, it hits everyone, like, and everybody kind of bows down to it because it's like a very one thing, and it's like, we haven't seen this before, and everybody freaks out, like, like in this industry. But honestly, Bill, I actually think that one of the extreme examples of the non-innovation and getting us to buy stuff is just additions. And we know all about this. We've had this discussion, but just honestly, brand loyalty is one way to just get people to spend a whole lot of money for the same exact game for the most part. So, like, really, next edition gives you the least amount of innovation typically for the most amount of sameness for a fairly comparable amount of money, like for getting into, compared to getting like do a new game. By the time you get their new army or whatever the new models that come out, by the time you get either an army book of some sort and the rules, you're like buying a new game. And so to me, that's the extreme example of basically getting just what you always had before for like the price of a new game. No, I mean, I was kind of joking around based on what Dan said, that just like, I think we're basically at, we've reached the pinnacle. But I would agree with Dan though, that I think that very little innovation does probably truly happen, like at this point. Like, and most people have said that most of these things we see already. Having said that, I do think it does still happen sometimes, as you say, Bill. And I think when it does, Saga is really popular. When it does, I'm not arguing that the battle board was never done before. Like I can't go back forever just to know that, like, as to whether that mechanic was done. But clearly, when it does, sometimes people just jump all over it. And Frostgrave may not be the first open-ended miniature skirmish game, but when it did hit, everybody talked about it as if it was, like the fact that you could use any miniature you wanted and like the amount of creativity you could put into it. And I don't play Frostgrave, but I recognize the fan base for that. And just at that time, it was the cat's pajamas. Yeah. Curtis, was it the cat's pajamas? You would
pretty close.
Your cats were in Frostgrave pajamas.
I think another innovation was the Wings of War. Without that game being made, then we wouldn't have had X-Wing and we wouldn't have had Gaslands. There are innovations that just have a huge splash, and that's one of them. There, was it Wings of War or
Wings of War?
Wings of Glory.
Wings of Glory. Or which one was first? I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
Well, we wouldn't have had X-Wing without them, right? And X-Wing did much better than them, probably 10 times over. But they were the direct precursor, right, to X-Wing, as far as I understand it.
Yeah.
I think so. The mechanics, I think they stole and basically took the mechanics of the Wings of Glory and then brought it over to X-Wing.
I think it was Wings of War first. I think it was.
Yeah.
And that was Fantasy Flight Games that was the main publisher to bring it to the surface. And Fantasy Flight Games is the same company that does
X-Wing.
this X-Wing.
Legion.
Mm.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So they knew what was going on with the mechanics there when they designed it for X-Wing, really.
Yeah.
So it was nothing new, but at the time it was kind of innovative, you know, with the little cards, you put them in front of the base. And it simplified so much. That was pretty cool.
Oh
It
yeah.
kind of
Very
reminds me
intuitive.
of there was what the heck was the game? There was an Avalon Hill, or maybe it was an SPI game that had similar mechanics way back in.
Before they had this card thing, they had nothing but hex-based airplane games.
Yeah.
And it was a giant leap for aircraft games.
Something else similar along the same line is this part of the popularity of bolt action is what? It's the dice. It's the orders dice.
Yeah.
And at its basis, that's really taken from GW's Epic Space Marine, because they didn't use the same mechanic, but it had the same idea of using dice to show orders for your units. And they took it a step further with bolt action, saying, let's put them in a bag, like as if you were randomly drawn from, say, a deck of cards, but we're going to use a bag with dice, and there you go.
Oh yeah,
but that only really determines who places the order. It doesn't determine the order.
Oh yeah, and that's from Sword in the Flame.
Yeah, that's true.
That's from that game system.
Way back.
30 years ago.
And a lot of bolt action mechanics are straight from 40K as well. I mean, they just borrowed from everybody.
I think it comes down to how you blend these things together into
like baking a pie.
Into a setting where the mechanics make sense and you feel like you're representing a battle of World War II or whatever. It feels right. Everything is a perfect blend of ingredients. I think that's more the goal than coming up with something totally, wow, nobody thought of this before. Yes, they have, I'm sure.
Well, when you think about it, out of all the games that come out in a year, like how many do you think come out with something like totally innovative? Like even Bill, like since you're kind of like on the side, like where you're a supporter of the idea that there's room to innovate. Like, what would you say? Like, if you had to pick a number, like how many innovative games where they truly come out with something that wasn't done before that changes sort of like the way you look at one form of miniature gaming, whether it be epic scale or whether it be 28 millimeter or naval or this or that. Like, if you had to pick a number, how many do you think a year change the game? The landscape?
Well, these changes happen with small game companies. And so they don't have the large splash that a large game company like Games Workshop or Fantasy Flight Games has. Although some of these game systems do have some neat things. Just like the Osprey has been throwing a lot of these rules. I don't know anything about the Badgers game, but I do have Dracula's America, and they use the polyhedron dice in a different fashion. You've got a success of a 5 on all your rolls. So your scum, your untrained gunfighters have a D6 that they roll. And if they hit on a 5 or 6, now of course, obviously, you roll number of dice, and then if you hit on a 5 or 6, then you get a hit. Now, if you're a higher skilled character, then you simply, instead of me looking up a chart, I know that character's rolling D8s or D10s, and then they just roll the dice, and if they hit 5 or better, then I know that they hit, and it's refreshing not having to look up charts and stuff in some of these newer rules, and that they have it set up in that fashion. I think that's an innovation that needs to be explored. Another innovation I really liked recently was the Heart of Oak rules. Now they came out. They're still writing the rules when Warlord jumped the gun and put that Black Seas out. But Heart of Oak has a game before the game, and what that's about. I'm not sure if you're into.
You mean Oak and Iron?
Oak and Iron. That's it. That game has a game before the proper game, and what that is to get the weather gauge, which in that time period is, and even during the Napoleonic time period, getting the weather gauge is decisive in those fights, and that's why that game before the game is such a key factor in that game.
I'll tell you what. You mentioned Oak and Iron. I was thinking about Oak and Iron. That game, in my experience, is one of the better, and to use your words, Bill, innovative. Because what it does, although the mechanics are not new, it uses a deck of cards and the rules are simple with measurement and shooting, but the way it blends it all together on a very convenient sized tabletop area to fight in, it's literally like a chess match. It's really good. And I consider that one of the better games I've ever come across, honestly. I think it's fantastic. And I don't play it.
So Bill,
I don't collect it.
You were a politician in a past life, because I asked you how many innovations a year, and I heard like a lot of amazing information actually. But what I would say though is
about 2 or 3.
So that's interesting, because I would say I'd be comfortable with 1 on average, potentially 2. But what that would mean is, maybe I'm wrong, because what that would mean, like distinct innovative game mechanics, that would mean that in 20 years, you're looking at between 20 and 40 innovations in wargaming, which actually sounds like a lot, actually, when you think about it at that point. But I don't know what, whether that's, what's true, in that regard. But
Bill brought up the interesting thing is that it's the small companies that are doing this,
just
not the
gonna
big
say
companies. The bigger companies, the ones that will have the biggest footprint for the most people seeing it, are not the ones being innovative.
Yeah, the big
Well, that's the
companies
same
are
in a lot of
just
cases.
releasing new editions and rebadging old games, and
And you've also answered, both of you, both Bill and Curtis, one of my questions, because I was asking about the naval combat, and Oak and Iron, I'm assuming, is more of a recent naval game. So there is, obviously some interesting stuff to get into that's naval, that's recent, that's coming out. So that is interesting. So Rusty, do you want to? We probably have a lot to catch up on comments before we even consider another round on this topic.
Yeah, we have like 2, maybe 3 comments. I don't know. All right, let's say we have to welcome Axe and Axe in.
David Moffat, who joins in. That's his YouTube channel.
I'm just waiting for the house to quit shaking, because we had somebody just drive by, like, like the whole house. I'm look over here and I see my drink on, like, I'm waiting for the T-Rex to show up.
More bass.
Okay, addicted to lead. I don't buy. You really buy rules that are linked to specific minis. I bought all the Stargrave minis, but not using this for Stargrave. That could be there is a thing to be said about that. Is that there's plenty of minis out there to be used for different games, especially if you, like when you brought up Frostgrave, you can use anything you want for those games. The whole Osprey series of games, basically you just bring whatever you want to the table. They do have their own miniature lines, but they say, yeah, whatever. Battletech being the exception. Always buy it. We did mention Battletech. We have to drink. Palmer, that's sip.
That's a sip. Yeah.
All right. Walkabout Chris here. We got finding
Here
I'm
we
finding
go.
that I'm buying less and less miniatures because of my printer. Yeah, that is true. You have what, 3 or 4 of them now? But buying more rules is seeing more and more vids. And yeah, that's the thing that we brought up earlier, is that YouTube's about rules that get me sucked in. That's the thing that's very popular, because it is easy to buy a rule book than it is to buy the entire miniature line. Because it's that's the one thing I always like doing. It's like, I will buy the rule book. I'm willing to spend the $20, maybe $30 on a rule book to see if it's worth the expense. And that's probably why I got like 3-4 shelves of nothing but rule books. Because once you start into the miniature line, whoa, then you really get into the money.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's where the money is, though, you know?
Yeah, most definitely. Pretty addicting. It's addicting to rules.
Collectibles.
I just had this conversation the other day with Dan, because I bought a new rule book, and
An old rule book.
it's an old rule book. Yeah, it's like almost 20 years old, and I was like, I've heard of it. I just finally got around to buying it.
Mm-hmm.
I think a palm right. Did I send you the picture of that?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was the GHQ's World War II
Naval game. Yeah.
You know, so one of you guys said something that just kind of, I know we're doing comments now, but that's interesting to me, because we all know that the miniatures are like one of the, like where the money is and all that stuff. But as compared to board games, and I know there are a lot of folks in the room that play board games, does that mean that game design isn't really as much as an incentive for the payroll for miniature-based companies? Like that really, if everybody acknowledges that the money's in the miniatures and it's all about getting the new miniatures, does that mean that they put less effort and money into the actual game design as compared to a board game company?
Sometimes it appears GW does.
Yeah, bringing up GW, they always say, the thing I always say, did GW ever play test any of this stuff, or they just write the rules and say, there it is, go play with it, and everybody's like,
never mind play testing. I'd be happy if they proofread some stuff before I went out.
yeah, that too.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
But for folks that like miniature games that really don't play as much board games and are really invested in the miniature game side of the hobby, that's kind of disappointing in some ways if you like a good game, right? In the sense that if truly like your hobby, like they don't focus as much on the rules because the money being in the miniatures, if they do take that approach, it means that the quality of your games are not going to be as good.
That's GMT makes nice quality components.
Yes,
Would you
they
agree,
do.
Rusty? My gosh,
Oh, yeah.
that's about the same thrill you get from handling miniatures. It almost is.
Yeah, it's still in its wrapper. I got this about 2 weeks ago.
Okay, that's good stuff. Yeah.
I've been waiting to get this game so I can do the review on this one, crack it open.
Yeah, that.
And then I can get that new box smell. Go.
It's hard to beat.
Curtis knows what that's about too.
It depends on the individuals, Palmer. Like the coupling between miniatures and rule sets. Like I was saying, for me, if I'm not happy with a rule set, so I'm going to another miniature line, but I didn't invest into it until there was nice miniatures. So it's sort of a tandem thing. I don't think they're separate for me personally, but I'm sure for other people it's different. They'll be like, I've no interest in the rules. I just really like the miniatures, especially if people are into painting and stuff. What was there was a line of miniatures, Rackham. I think some of my friends got into it because they just wanted to paint them. They didn't have an interest in the rule set behind it or the lore or whatever else. They were like, these are really nice sculpts. These look amazing to paint. And like I've some friends who got into a lot of Rackham miniatures just to paint them. So it just depends on the individual's priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you look at GW, it's like they have most of their miniatures are really awesome. They put a lot of effort into making them. The rules, on the other hand, are like, okay, that's did you write this for a 5-year-old? I think this shoots and ladders. It's kind of like how it feels at times, but not to.
But I think a lot of the GW a lot of their game rules are written for tournament play because that seems to be what they're. I don't know if that's what sells or that keeps people in it or I'm not sure what, but that's which is a shortcoming in my opinion. But I mean, like that tournament I was at had 40K and Kings of War and other. They had Crisis Protocol 2 Palmer there going, but the 40K is it just seems like it's totally for tournament play, but which doesn't necessarily make a rule system that's for everybody that way.
Yeah, it's definitely another factor, the tournament play component.
There is a game company called Knuckle Buster Studios.
Yeah.
And, they have a game system called Gunfighter's Ball.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's a terrible game.
Is it? I've never played, but my buddy did the Kickstarter, and he was all jazzed about it.
That's like the ultimate slapdown.
It's bad, huh?
But the miniatures are fantastic.
Yeah, that's what he said.
The miniatures, they have an entire line of miniatures, and oh boy, detail is fantastic. It's like the historical version of Games Workshop. They put out this really terrible set of rules, and it's got a hardback. I bought the rules. And I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I read through the rules, and I was like, are you kidding me? I haven't even I haven't even tried the rules. They're so terrible. But the miniatures were awesome.
We say exactly what we think on the Musty Wargamers, so conflicting opinions are welcome.
I have no opinion of the game.
But
sometimes it only takes 10 to 15 minutes of information, and you really know that this is garbage. It's like last night, my wife and I were watching movies. We got a twofer. It's like BOGO, rent one, get one free type thing. First movie we watched was really good, actually. It was like an hour and a half, low budget movie, but it was really good. And then the next one was The Rookie. It was like 2 hours long. It was big, flashy trailer with it. We're watching the trailer. And it's like, oh yeah, this is good. My wife and I were like, this looks pretty good. So we rented it. I don't think we lasted 15 minutes before we couldn't take it anymore. It was like, gotta go.
I find that's the worst feeling when you invest like 20 minutes into something and then it gets so bad that you actually feel like you have to stop and you're like, oh my God, what am I doing?
I lost 15 minutes of my life.
Now I don't have time to do another movie. And I don't even want to.
I wish
got
I had
a
that
tandem
hour.
question. Oh, go on. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was just saying, I wish I had that hour left after I read the rules of Gunfighter's Ball.
Not to rub it in or anything. Were you going to say something?
Wow.
Yeah, it was just we're talking about rule sets being good or bad, and it sort of just brings to mind something that I found in conversation with other wargamers. It's kind of a tandem question of, can you judge a wargaming system just by reading the rules, or do you have to play it? Myself personally, I think if you've been wargaming enough, you can read a rule set and you can kind of read between the lines, and you're like, you can get a feel for it. But there are other people who would argue otherwise, where you don't get a true feel for a game until you've played it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's the that 15 mil game that have been playing lately. It's kind of sucked the life out of me in a way. That Battle Valor game system is it's acting like it wants to be good, but there's so much to it that you just drives you nuts. You keep. It's like a bad relationship. You got the bad girlfriend.
I do think that it's fair game to say that also different people will like different games. Like a game that Bill says he likes, Dan doesn't like, Dan may actually like. It doesn't mean that it's bad. There are some that you're universal, but I'll give you an example. AOS, I really don't personally like AOS that much, but I've had some fun games with it when first trying it, just mainly because of the company I was with and just the spirit of the game. We had some fun. But there are some people that absolutely hate it, and there's some people that actually really like it. And whether or not you call it a good game or not, that's fine, but if some people like it and have a good time with it and enjoy it, then it's valid, that they like it. And so, at the end of the day, we're all going to have our opinions and reasons for why we like stuff and don't. And then, but to further to what Dwayne said, there's a game called Rogue Stars. I really love the character creation component. It reminded me of like Heroes Unlimited, the role-playing game back in the day, because you could have like this amazing fun creating a character. Like I'm going to spend an afternoon creating a character and just going through everything they tell me to do. And it's just like a lot of fun. But then I actually didn't really enjoy the game. Never played it since. So, and that's just me personally. That's not to say the game is bad. I only tried it once, but it was enough that I didn't ever go back. So.
All right. We have minis first of the period I want to game, then do a lot of research into which rule sets suit me best. Usually end up with 2 or 3 rule sets for each period, but still tinker with them anyway. Now that could be a lot. Now if you're an individual that spends and has time where you got a set of rules, or not, let's say you got an era, you play historicals. The historical miniatures will work for about any game system. The basing may be slightly different, but the miniatures will still work one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
The basing really comes into differences when you're playing like 15 mil versus say 28s or something like that. But you can use those miniatures for that rule set, this rule set. You can just keep tinkering with rules or this set of rules, and just keep trying to find something that actually trips your trigger. And it's like, then you got your group go, this is the next best thing since sliced bread, All right, gents, a question. Do any of you belong to a local game club? If not, is that through choice? Okay, that's an interesting question. We used to have a club here in Des Moines. Don't have a club anymore. It's kind of like half the group died, literally died. Old age. But that's not something you find big gaming clubs, I think, in large cities where your space is at a premium.
Yeah.
I think that's it's like, Dan, you're nowhere near a club possibility. So the same here for me, we're in the same state. Bill, you don't think you have anything near you?
No. We don't have any clubs.
Palmer?
Well, we're a big gaming town. Like we're over 1 million in the city, and Calgary's a big gaming town. And there are some folks from Calgary, like Brad and Dave, that are watching. Maybe they can chime in the comments, but I don't really think we structure in the way of calling as a club. It's mainly associated with a store, and even a large store like the Sentry Box, although they may have events and they have a community for sure. I don't think it's referred to in the way it is in the UK as a club. Like you become a member and like you're in a club. It's still associated with the store. So I hate to call it this way, but like the only word that comes up to me is like there's a cultural difference in the way you organize sometimes in different areas of the world. And like gaming clubs aren't, to my knowledge, really as popular here.
Out east, there's clubs out east, like say in like New York and those big cities like that. There's clubs. I know that. My brother, when he was stationed out east, was a member of a club out there. They would go and do that kind of thing. But I haven't ever seen really a club.
Yeah.
Well, David just chimed in and said that Ogre's Den, which is in Calgary, is a club, or he's questioning Mark and saying Ogre's Den, that's a club. I wasn't aware that they refer to themselves as a club. That's not where I actually would game, but prior to COVID. And so maybe they do, but in my experience, for the most part, it's based on stores. But I guess I have been in there once to like trade some miniatures, and I guess I didn't see a big retail space in there. So I guess that makes sense that they're a club. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, we have a dozen stores here in Tucson, and each caters to a different type of gamer. But they're not clubs per se. They will occasionally set up a tournament for whatever game that those gamers are set up for. So whether that be Games Workshop or Star Wars Legion or whatnot, they will set up those tournaments as organized events, but that's as organized as we get out here in the West.
What
How
about you,
about
Curtis?
I got distracted. What was the thing again? I did. I'm serious. Got distracted.
about gaming club?
Oh, gaming clubs. Yeah, I have. There's locally, not far from me. There's this one store that's been around forever. I started a club at that store, and it's something anybody could do. If you want to start a club, just find a hobby store and talk to the owners and say, "Hey, I want to bring some folks in and find some people online." That's what I did, but I don't go there these days. It's full of kids and cards and 40K, which is nice, but I don't really. It's not my scene, I guess, anymore.
Never join a club that would have me as a member.
Never.
Hit the nail on the head.
But it's interesting what you were saying, Palmer, about the cultural difference, because we kind of have a club as such. It's like there's a group called the Dublin Gamers Guild, and they play mostly in a store, but they're not limited to that store. So it's a very sort of casual collection of gamers, and they're organized in that regard. You'll create a Facebook group, and there'll be chats, and there'll be trading, and hey, I'm looking for a game where you want to play, and you may play in the store that they normally play in, you may play somewhere else. So it's kind of like it's not based just in one place, sort of. So it's a loose sort of affiliation or collection of people. But then when I was living in the UK, I went out of my way when I was living in London to find people to play with, and I found a gaming club, the Phoenix Gaming Club, that met in the Black Lion pub in East London. It's like a pub that's like 400 years old or whatever. It's really cool. We used to meet up in there was like a carriage area where the old school carriages would go in, and we played in a function room that was the old stables. So we played there. They had some sort of arrangement, but it was like that. You paid for membership for the year. It's only like £2 or £3 something, and then you paid your subs every time you went there. It was like £1.50 or something, or £2. It wasn't crazy money, you know what I mean? But it was very, like, even the difference between Ireland and England. You know what I mean? It really culturally, the difference between how they organize each other and this idea of what a club is and how they gather and such, it is very different as well. It depends. I'm sure there are clubs like that in Ireland, but for me locally, I'm not part of as such a structured sort of club membership type of thing.
Yeah. And sometimes, like, when you pay membership, as I've heard it, is there's club terrain and, like, basically things that you have access to that you don't have to bring necessarily. And there's just aspects to being part of a club that come with that, it seems like.
Well, we have that with the other group as well, though. It's like, there's a loose connection of stuff. We need terrain. We'll do a whip around. Oh, yeah, I'll throw in 10 or I'll throw in 20, if you can get, and then stuff gets bought for the group, and it doesn't have to be super structured either in that way.
Yeah, I was gonna say, my brother, he was saying that the club he was a member of for the time he was stationed out there in, I think, at the academy, outside the academy, was that they had set number of tables, and it's like, okay, everybody paid their dues, and then it's like, all right, I'm going to reserve this table. You'd have to, if you're going to actually reserve a table, you have to spend a little bit of money to reserve a table, and you had access to all the terrain that was available to the club. So they had walls of nothing but terrain, so you could set everything up, play whatever you wanted. So that type of deal. Otherwise, it was a first come, first serve type of deal where first people come in, you get your table unless you reserve it. Belong to two clubs, neither of which charge annually, but both hold monthly games, charge about $10 entrance fee, and GMs usually get it free. Okay. Makes sense. Kind of like a tournament. A few games use the method force on force, uses the system like that. Yeah, force on force is, I got the rules. One of these days I'll actually maybe think about really reading them.
It's already out of print and gone by now.
Yeah.
Better catch up there, Rusty.
Well, speaking of catching up, I think that
Oh,
the
God.
comments have actually grown, the number of comments that we have to do since we've started the comments. So I'm going to just say maybe we should do a quick random comments to the bottom, like 4, and then we go on to our next topic. What do you think, Rusty?
I'm just going to flip through here and publish new rules scenario. Okay. Mage Knights was a test bed for HeroClix. Okay. And I'm going to just go, wow!
Hey, Marcus.
Everybody slow down with the comments. We can't keep up.
We're breaking up. We're breaking up. Working on Wrath of Kings minis. Rack 'em. Yeah, those are really awesome miniatures. They come at a pretty price now. Those are hard to
Yeah.
get.
Yeah, highly sought after there.
I think you can read a rule set and know if it's really bad. Yeah, sometimes you can. You just read it and go, oh my God. If it puts you to sleep, you know it's bad. That's my
It
look
has
on zombie side. The fistful of lead.
If it has a ton of charts, you know it's bad.
Boo. More charts, the better.
Yeah, charts,
Charts
come
are
on.
fun.
Yeah, charts could be
That's
good.
old school. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to play Chart Master, so I don't have I don't have a problem with charts. I dig it. Okay. Used to have a club for privateer wargaming. I didn't. Okay. Boy, there is a lot of wow, it's like they're coming in fast.
Before COVID, there was something like a club out here at a saloon. Shirley went, right, honey?
Mhm.
And they would do like meetings there every Sunday night, every other Sunday night, where they'd have.
Hey, I think I reached the bottom.
All right.
Most rules put me to sleep. There we
Well,
go.
I'm guessing they played a lot of Knuckle Duster at the saloon.
No, they do other games and stuff. You know.
So what makes it a saloon instead of a bar? Does it truly have the 2 doors that you hit and go in, or like does it have a regular door?
Regular door,
Okay. All right.
but it's in Tucson.
That
makes it saloon.
That's the difference.
See, the difference is a bar can be found on every corner. A saloon is just found in the middle of the street. So
It is in the middle of the street.
It always has to have a fight out front, like in the middle of the street. In the middle of the street.
But they have that there too. So I mean,
Yeah.
fight with your own, disregard, I guess.
Gamers flipping tables. He's playing with loaded dice. Get him.
God.
So,
Oh.
Rusty, how do we want to do the next topic? Do you want to introduce this one and have
yeah,
maybe-
I'll introduce it.
Why don't we have Skarnier start since he's like directly opposite you, and then just continue the same direction?
Okay.
What do you think?
Off,
Sorry,
it's the
Skarnier.
same-
I just Dwayne. I just volunteered you for that.
Game ball, lads.
Well, it's probably going to be similar, but all right. The topic is if you could find any type of game genre that you can make into some type of media, like a video or TV series or movie, something like that. What would it be? It's kind of a fun thing topic, and I'm just curious. I know what mine's going to be, but I'm just curious what everybody else might be.
I suppose it depends what you're into personally yourself. Like I can understand. Like I'm not really big into certain historical events, but I keep finding myself looking at different historical battles that have happened, and I keep coming across them on YouTube. Like for instance, the battle in Sweden when the Kriegsmarine were invaded in World War II. I didn't know about the Blücher being sunk by when it was trying to get into the main entrance into Oslo. So I can understand how historical war gamers probably there's thousands upon thousands of individual battles that have probably happened that have never made it to the films, and there's probably great stories out there that could be told. So I can understand how there's absolutely truckloads of them. And then coming from science fiction, it's like you're probably sick of it at this stage, but BattleTech has a lot of stuff that I'm like, this would be
Oh,
really
God.
cool if it was turned into a film. Well, you know, see, it's old hat for me at this stage, but it really would. Like, I read the Grey Death trilogy, the first few books that came out for BattleTech, and they make a great story. I'd like to see that even as an animated series, or you know, something along that lines. There's so much. It just depends what you as an individual are into and what the lore behind it is. I'm sure Burrows and Badgers has something going on. It could be turned into a comic strip or something. You know what I mean? It just depends
animated
what you're
series,
into.
though, that could be the kiss of death to ever get a true feature film. Sometimes that's what happens. Is once it hits cartoon, nobody wants to touch it. Sometimes.
Well, you never know. You know what I mean?
You never know. It's true.
Well, okay, we'll go maybe graphic novel then, Force Palmer. That's
There you go.
usually not the best. There you go.
I'm just trying to get you your feature film. Curtis.
Yep.
What out of all the games that you play and all that stuff, like what one would you like to see bridge into another kind of entertainment that you can watch, like TV series or movie or something like that?
I thought about this, and I knew what Dwayne was going to say. I hit that nail on the head. I knew that. And you know what? I would agree with him. I think BattleTech is a perfect genre. And I think they have done movies like that. They did that cartoon series, not Robotech or whatever it was, but that one for, what was that one with the smaller robots? They had roller skates on their feet and they'd zip around deserts fighting. What was that? It's still out. You can still play it today. It's
Heavy Gear.
Heavy Gear, is it?
Heavy Gear. Is it Heavy Gear?
I'm not too sure. I think it might be that.
Heavy Gear. It used to be a cartoon series. It's based. They're based up in Canada. But something like BattleTech with that real futuristic science fiction, I think that would make a great motion picture if done right. I always felt that would be great as a motion picture. There's so many stories there to weave a movie out of. Another one for me has always been Dragonlance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Not as a cartoon, but as a full-blown movie epic like Lord of the Rings, because I think it deserves it, and it can very well be done if the casting is done right and they stick to the books. I think it would be fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't know. I picture the Gully Dwarves as like Jar Jar Binks.
I still think the characters of the main crew of like the Chronicles of the original Chronicle books would be great. Like I actually think the characters are very solid.
Wrestling and
It's a very good. It's not one of those gray area novels. It's black and white, good against evil. So I don't know how well it would do in this climate we live in today, but I think it's a great potential for a movie. The Chronicles series, fantastic. I'd love it. Another one is 40K. I think there is so many epic stories, especially with the Black Library and all that. I'd love to see a Sisters of Battle motion picture. I mean, I'll be on Facebook. Yes, I'm on there too much, but I'll be scrolling through and I'll see an actress that maybe I follow, maybe I don't. I'm not saying, but I'll see her and say, she's perfect. She'd be great as a Sister of Battle with one of those little fleur-de-lis tattoos under the eye and all that stuff. I'm always looking at stuff like that. And I think 40K would make some good pictures, especially with Sisters of Battle themed or Space Marine or something even. I think that would be a great thing to see on the big screen.
You know, the funny thing when you say that, Curtis, is the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about it, because I love 40K Universe too, and I would love to see that. My first thing is like, could they really get the orcs done well? And like the reason I say that is because it's got to be probably to do it like that. It's got to be some pretty good special effects. Like I don't want them to turn them into Lord of the Rings or it works. But and the thing is, this is a light kind of came out of my head in that. If you like the movie The Fifth Element, there's that alien race that are like kind of orcs, like they're not green, but they're like these like mercenaries, and they're funny and they're kind of scary funny. And honestly, if they can do it back then, like with that race, if they take the same approach, I think they could do orcs like 40K. Like, because honestly, like initially, I say to myself, like, you probably couldn't do orcs easily, and which to me, like, I don't know, just to me, like, you can't do 40K without orcs. Like, in all honesty, like they have to be in there. But I don't know. That's interesting because that movie, The Fifth Element, has that race that if they can do them and pull it off, they could probably get the right person. They could do orcs, and I think you're right. I think it could be done. That would be really entertaining.
Yeah, it would. It have to be done right though. Not like a flop they did with Dragonlance, and they turned it into a cartoon that was like a child's show. It was laughable.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as historical periods and battles and stuff, you could pick from anything in history and make a big movie out of it. And you see very few of them really these days. There was one
It's kind of a genre you're finding in the producers and studios are not wanting to touch.
Yeah. And then of course you got the situation between realism and entertainment. Like the series Vikings, you know, how much of that was a load of crap. But it's still at its core. It still had that historical thing in it. Like, you know,
anyway, I found it entertaining. Like I wasn't viewing it like from the perspective of like how did they get every single thing right, but I found it was still entertaining because it was mystical too, right? Like you would see ravens come through and it was like they were incorporating the mystical aspect, so it was meant to be, you know, like an interpretation in a lot of ways.
But as far as battles and stuff, there's so much you could pick from. I really couldn't say.
Yeah, sorry, Bill, I didn't hear what you said on that.
Go ahead, Bill.
I have to say Vikings is good because it got my wife interested in doing stuff.
The other one that Viking show that was about England.
The Last Kingdom.
Yeah, The Last Kingdom. That was real. My wife really loves that show.
I liked that.
Like that one too, don't you?
Yeah, my thing is my miniatures have to have boobs. You know, this is the way I like.
Wow.
They look like women. I like it when they look like men dressed up.
Yeah, I got miniatures for her to be Valkyries, and they're wearing chainmail shirts that were kind of.
They look like men.
Yeah, they didn't have cleavage and stuff like that, so she didn't like them. So.
They're supposed to look like women, all right? Okay.
Yeah, that's what she says.
Like,
So.
you know, kind of like, you know,
Bill Plate's not real.
My missus is into the Lord of the Rings, so that's what I got her for Christmas. I got her the Battle of Pelennor Fields, the box set, and then on Valentine's, I got her like a few more Lord of the Rings bits and pieces. So it's that's probably a top tip for any gamers out there wanting to get the missus. Find whatever media she's sort of into. She likes the films. See if they do a wargaming set.
So does she paint, Dwayne, or do you have to paint them?
No, I bought her. What did I get her? I got her the big mega army painter set. And then what else we were doing? We were starting to paint up some of these Reaper Bones dudes.
Yeah.
Because she has no interest in assembling miniatures.
Okay.
So we were trying to look for stuff that was
already one piece.
Either one piece or very little assembly, and then started painting stuff up. I painted one of these up in I don't know what it is. It's sort of like a centipede dragon. I forget the name of it, but I painted my one up, and then she painted.
It's like a Oriental dragon.
Yeah, it's a D&D monster. I forget the name of it, but it's on the Reaper Bones, and it's made up of a few pieces, but it's pretty cool. So I painted my one up in red, and she got the same one, and she painted hers up in a sort of a bluish purple. So we had fun doing that.
You're a lucky man right there.
yeah. Keep her already.
Oh boy.
Well, if I was going to go for a genre, and I think about the games that I play that I'd really probably be interested in seeing translated, I'd love to see them do a bunch of movies like on Marvel, like the Marvel characters. And I think they could be really successful. Like if they made a bunch of Marvel movies
Do you
and,
think?
and you know, they could probably do it for a while. I think people would tag on to it. You know, I think
you're onto something, Palmer.
Well,
Sounds like an instant flop to me. No one's into comics, man. Like, come on.
My number 2 was Saga with Ragnarok and the Vikings. Like I thought that would be no, but in all seriousness, I don't know. I kind of struggle with this because like Curtis said and other folks have said, like with the historical, well, like you could do any battle, like Dan said, and you can really go granular and like and take something that you do that's not been done before historical. But really, like there's so much that's been done historical, and they could always do more. And I would probably want another good French-Indian War movie. You know, like personally up my alley. Like I would really enjoy that, love that, and I love the Dark Ages stuff too, to be quite honest. So those would always be welcome, but I almost had to think of one while we were just sitting here. And even though Curtis said GW, like you mentioned 40K, I would probably not say Warhammer Fantasy for me personally, but what I would say is I think I would really enjoy a movie just set in Mordheim, like just in that setting. Because I think it's not that I dislike the Warhammer Fantasy and wouldn't want to see that. I would. But I think within the confines of the Mordheim universe, you could have a very cool stories and scenery, like in that very distinct kind of look in that town. And I think that would be very cool, like just to have a movie called Mordheim, like, and just have them somehow incorporate the different factions and a story. And instead of it being one warband against another, have it an actual story and actually incorporate, you know, all of the different factions within the traditional game. And a lot of people really like it, like that dark kind of Mordheim city look. I think that'd be very cool.
Sort of Gangs of New York style, yeah.
Yeah, there's a similarity to that, right? It'd be the fantasy and it'd be a little bit different, but I think you're right. Yeah, there'd be similarities to that.
That'd be kind of cool.
You know, I was just reminded of something when I thought of Vikings. There's something in the UK, BBC put out back in the 80s, 2-season series that's very similar to what the Vikings did. The Vikings series did, except it only lasted 2 seasons. And it was based around the English Civil War. And when I was a little kid, I watched this, and it really was one of the reasons I got fascinated by history, specifically the English Civil War, and it was called By the Sword Divided. I would like to see that series remade and made more epic by including battle scenes, the big battles, because it didn't include any big battles outside of, you know, skirmishes and the sieges, but it told a story of this one family during the conflict, as it, you know, the father would grow old and the sons would grow up, you know, kind of like Vikings did. And it was a great story, and I'd love to see that remade. English Civil War.
That'd be cool. You don't see a lot of that, really, the English Civil War, when it comes to movies and any of that nature.
Well, there's a period of history I got interested in because you guys were talking about like tomahawks, and there's a game. What's the game? Tomahawks and flintlocks. Musket and tomahawks. I'm like, I knew it was something like that. But the King's Philip War, like, I didn't know about that period in time in American history. That very sort of early in a indigenous people sort of against the settlers type of stuff. So. Like, I'd like to see something along that lines. Now, I don't know if there's films out there about that period of time that do sort of justice to the historic element of it. But, you know, feel free to throw in the comment section if there is.
I wouldn't chime into on the historical component, but from like a visual and like I always still enjoy watching Last of the Mohicans. You know, I like that film. And so if you like that period, or if you're interested in seeing it, like that's a nice adventure sort of film, you know, that you get to see the flavor of that. I always thought that was cool.
Mago will cut his heart out and eat it. That's a good movie. Excellent movie.
Tokyo Drift up to Rusty.
All right. Well, we already started the bandwagon on the BattleTech. Just heard music.
Josh, I'm gonna go straight from the bottle.
Whoa.
Sips, Palmer, sips. Oh my God, man.
Well, I was going to say BattleTech. Now, I was the very first time when during the Succession Wars, when they had the joining the House Steiner and House Davy together, and then formed together, and it's the wedding day. And my darling, what I give you the Capellan Confederation as my wedding present. And that would be the best start of a movie. That's what I always envisioned. That is the movie starting off. You got the panoramic, you got this grandiose wedding and everything going on. And people are like, "What's going on?" And he said, "In my toast, will I give you the Capella Confederation?" And then all of a sudden, you just see the battle mechs just blast down on the planet, and you got the massive invasion of the Capella Confederation. Is they getting crushed here and you got the war? That would be awesome.
The general studio audience would be like sitting there quiet, and then Rusty would be weeping. Like you'd hear him weeping, like in the room. It'd be like you'd hear, and then you'd be like, like in the corner.
I'd be like Drax, from you're like holding my knives out, going, "Yes, yes." Oh, that would be stabbing the neighbors next to me. Ah, crazy. But yeah, that would be one of the most, because you look at what they've done. The Pacific Rim movies, where they had the mechs running around. Those are larger than what a battle mech is by far. But they got the CGI. They can do all that fun stuff nowadays, and they could easily do battle scenes and everything. Going at it, and you could easily have a trilogy of these movies, or turn it into a 10 episode series, season, or this is happening, invasion of this planet, and you stretch it out type of deal. So they could easily, all the courtly intrigue that goes with it. This the original Game of Thrones, right? Because all the court intrigue that you have with all the houses of the inner sphere fighting it out with each other, it's basically Game of Thrones. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm. But you know what? Like, I think that would be popular. I mean, like the whole intrigue in Game of Thrones and having that just in a science fiction setting and telling a different story, that'd be potentially pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what I think.
It'd be like Warren.
Like Warhammer?
Like Warren.
Oh, that's one film I'm waiting to see this year. I'm telling you.
That's what, September or something like that. That's coming out.
I saw that coming in the comments there, and I think it will turn to a miniature game if it's a successful movie. I think it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Well, they've released the old board games and stuff, haven't they? And they've brought out a new one as well. The old Dune board game. They've redone that.
That was the SBI, old Avalon Hill or SBI or something. Yeah,
it was Avalon Hill had one.
Okay.
I used to have it. I just sold it, sadly. But
with all the comments in the worms, though, I think the worms are going to be difficult unless you do it in epic scale. Like, in all honesty, could you imagine with 28 millimeters trying to have the worms to scale in those movies?
It was like you got all the
table.
You got the Sadakar warriors on one side, and also you just was like, what's in the big box? All right, game over.
Exactly.
Splat.
Or you just have it come through up the center of the table, flip the table.
Just have one of those laundry baskets in the same color as the one. The ones that are sort of a material that spring and it's like a melt. Yeah, you just have one of them. Like that table edge, that's the worm.
Okay.
Disappear.
Set up round 1, purple worm. I win. Set up round 2, purple worm, you win. Or whatever, Dune worm.
Whoever deploys the worm first wins.
Yeah, that's right.
Unless
worm win.
Like, what's your side doing? It was like, are you going to get attacked by the worm? No, we're crawling up on the worm. And we're going to control it.
Relatable, so you can carry them to the store,
Yep. No,
could you imagine? Walk into a game store and there's a guy. I see you're playing Dune.
Or you could just wear a costume, like the players could be the worm, and they put the guys on the table.
Like those T-Rex suits that you see people wearing. You know, the one with the little window on the arms. Yeah, he's just. You invite your kid brother along. You just stand there. Don't move until I tell you. 6 inches. Yeah, all right. Don't move.
I seen a cartoon the other day. It shows a cat and wrapped up in a towel. All you see is his head. It's the cat worm for Dune. Like, that's so funny. You have to be a Dune fan to understand that one.
I don't know. I think cats in a gaming store would be bad news. You'll just see miniatures getting patted off.
Off the edge.
Now, I would second Curtis's vote for. You look at the Warhammer genre in itself, like 40K. That could be another one where you could do even a Game of Thrones style epicness with that, then have the warfare going around it, or Eisenhorn. You got all the different books that are from the Black Library that could easily make into movies. Now, recently, I understand that Games Workshop is now going to have their own streaming service.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard something like that too.
Wow.
So obviously, maybe they're got something in the works that they're actually going to start doing cartoons, movies, and actually
several
films.
projects.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fan-made stuff. They've gotten a lot of the guys on board.
Yeah.
There was a dude that did a Hell's Reach series. They have him doing something. There's a lot of them. Yeah, there's a whole lot of them there. So that's coming through. You know what I mean?
Well, one of the things, I mean, this is a bit of a sidebar, but you guys have heard as to how well Games Workshop has done through the pandemic, right? How they basically their stock has risen, as I understand it. Like, don't quote me on this, but I looked at the numbers and it looks like it's almost like quadrupled to like went 5 to 6 times above what it was, and it's considered to be within the UK like one of the most successful companies right now. Like it's really quite astonishing, like how much it's went up from what, maybe I took it wrong, like go look for yourself, but that's kind of what I thought I saw. And if that's go ahead.
They're valued higher than one of the gas services, I think, or something.
Which is
like
insane.
Right?
That's insane. Yeah. And so what that tells me is that they could potentially do it now. Like they could potentially make a quality movie, maybe where they couldn't have before, because that when you get that big to that point where you have that much money and that many, there's a reason why you have that much money. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll make an actual, like, doesn't have to be Hollywood, but like that level of kind of film. That would be amazing.
Well, you put it in perspective. Is that last I heard is like Hollywood is only worth like $100 billion itself, the company, the studios, and all that stuff. And you get a company that actually is worth a lot, and they actually have a excess cash where they can actually start doing these type of projects and get into film and actually have successful films. And they create their own studio. Yeah, they could really be like Marvel in that way when they linked up with Disney.
Yeah.
I could see them eventually getting on that bandwagon right there.
I would love it. I love the stories. There are times when I think about reading, like picking up a book just because I'm like a fanboy, like of the stories at times. I wouldn't touch any of the games right now with a 10-foot pole, but I wouldn't even close to any of them. Like this, I can't even hardly look at anything.
Well, I will have to
sorry
say,
for those of you that like
just
like that stuff out there. Well, honestly, I love the old stuff, but I have I can't look at the new stuff at all. Like I have friends that like half and half on the new stuff and try to get me to be reasonable. But I honestly, when I look at it, I hardly like anything. Like I almost never see anything that I like.
Yeah.
So.
I imagine Palmer going, anytime he's going to go past the Games Workshop, the Plague Doctor suit comes on, the bell comes out. Unclean!
We have one in the mall by us, and when I go by, you can see this old guy go like as he walks by, right? And it's like, you don't realize this isn't somebody that's looking down on people playing with toys. This is somebody that just doesn't like the toys you're playing with.
Yeah.
Basically what it is.
Now, when it comes to Games Workshop, there's only really one faction I care about, and that's pretty simple if you know anything about me. So,
Tal?
Dark Eldar.
Well, there's Mechanicum. That's it. I
love the books. The books that have come out recently.
I like the books. Something about the army I like about it. The game itself sucks. I'd be honest with you, like 8th and 9th edition. But I'm being politically correct there when I say that.
For people that are new to the show, now you know why like we're called the Musty Wargamers.
Jesus.
Because you get enough musty barreled stuff in you, then you actually tell you what you say.
Don't hate us because we're musty.
Hate us because we're honest.
There you go. You may not like our opinions, but we have one. That's what matters. All right, Bill. We've been totally forgetting about you.
All right. Well, I think it'd be kind of fun to do like a Dracula's America type of movie or genre. My inspiration was like Briscoe County Jr. back, what was that, 30 years ago? But or Wild Wild West with Will Smith. But with vampires and werewolves. Hey, there you go. Yeah,
was there a Quentin Tarantino movie that was kind of like undead or like vampires with Wild West?
Yes,
that
was.
Well, from dusk to dawn. Well, no, that's not Wild West.
Dusk to Dawn.
Okay, that'd be kind of similar potentially, but
that was modern though.
Yeah. Was it? Okay, so that would be different. Yeah, for sure. You could kind of do more historical.
Yeah, I thought that'd be kind of fun to do a werewolf thing. The closest thing I can think of is that what was it? Brotherhood of the Wolf that the French made. That was about 20 years ago. Not sure if you guys seen that one or not.
It sounds familiar.
I guess not. But you know, in the 40K thing, I think the Tyranids would be the way to go. You know, because you know, you could like get Sigourney Weaver out and out of retirement, and then have her fight the Tyranids. You know.
There you go.
Yeah, bitch.
Haven't had enough aliens? We got some for you.
But,
strap on an extra flamer. Let's go to war.
Yeah. The other genres. There was a genre of a board game called Heroes Over Normandy, but there was a subgenre of that board game where they have Cthulhu monsters fighting World War II guys. I thought that would be kind of a neat movie, where they have fishmen coming out of the water and shooting them down with a Thompson submachine gun. That'd be kind of fun. I mean, to me, that would be kind of a neat little thing to do a horror World War II movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Cthulhu Wars.
Just speaking on your 40K still though, like I think they would need. I would like to see the Horus Heresy, but I think they would need the first movie to be like Iron Man and Marvel, like where nobody knows whether this is going to be good or not. They got to pick something from it that like has made it so successful, the Horus Heresy stuff, and they have to knock it out of the park with that first movie, like regardless of how they decide to tell it. And then once they actually establish a character like Iron Man, but like within the Horus Heresy, and like do something like that, then from there, you're gonna, it'll just go from there. But that would be amazing.
If you read the very first book from the Horus Heresy of the Black Library, book 1,
Horus
where
Rising.
It starts off with a big battle, and it's like I'm reading this, and I'm thinking, man, they're starting it right off with the heresy, where the Terra, and then eventually you get to the point where you realize, no, this is not Terra. This is them taking a planet, during
the False Emperor. That's when they were in the False Emperor.
Yeah.
Palmer. Palmer's locked up.
I love it. I mean, like,
Max Headroom's back.
Am I still here?
You went to the space station.
You didn't pay your Comstar bills, did you?
No.
Let me see what's happening here.
Yeah, the other genre would be
Okay.
I occasionally play a game called Infinity Adventures. And I think that would be kind of cool to do a cyberpunk type movie. But
oh yeah, cyberpunk.
That'd be kind of fun.
Throw a little Billy Idol music in with it, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
I missed that, Bill. For what game were you had in mind for that?
It's Infinity.
as well for sure.
Palmer keeps messing up your audio.
Cyberpunk.
It's Infinity.
Infinity. Thank you.
Right.
Okay.
Oh,
There,
you
Palmer's
said-
back.
So Infinity is made by Corvus Belli, which is a company out of Spain, and it's a science fiction game that's very cinematic version. So it's not very realistic. If you're looking for realism, then this is not the game for you. It's more cinematic than anything. Well, I guess Palmer knows about the game because he plays it too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. Now, this is what I think about Infinity. Is that was it Rogue One or was it what's the movie that Star Wars movie that they made that was the prequel to Episode 4, where they had the Death Star plan. So
Yeah, they were on Scarif and they were getting the Death Star plans. Yeah, Rogue One.
I would think of a Infinity movie being something similar to that, where you're going in, they're like infiltrating in and trying to get something, kind of a mission like that.
Yeah.
That's what I always envisioned Infinity being like.
Espionage.
Yeah. And also, I think it would be really popular with a younger audience, to be honest, because it is. There's a lot of anime. There's a lot of stuff in it that, like my daughters would probably think are really cool, that are interested in anime and things like that. And I'm not big into anime, but I like Infinity. But I recognize some of the artwork and some of the aspects of it would be probably interesting to different audiences.
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't like robots?
There you go. Robots and aliens. And so, Dan, what about you? What do you think would be good?
Well, probably, I guess the thing that came to mind for me mostly was kind of the Burrows and Badgers thing again, just because, and I'm thinking not a movie, but like a mini, like Netflix should run with this. Because you could have season after season of whatever storyline you developed, and I think it'd be a little bit on the unique side, and kind of what made me think of it, movies that I've enjoyed. Remember the old Rats and Nim, animated, and what Ricky Tikki Tavi, and of course Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe. That's just. I don't know. It just hits a spot for me. Maybe it draws back from when I was real young. My mom used to read us The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. She read us the entire series before we went to bed at night, back when we were like first, second, third, fourth grade in there. And so anyway, I just think that'd be kind of cool. And the only other thing that I kind of thought of was, historical. It's it seems like all of it's been done. There's always another battle. I loved World War II. I always think is good on the screen, but a Band of Brothers was incredible. I mean, I've watched that I don't know how many times from start to finish.
Same here.
But then they kind of tried to do that again with the Pacific, and that one I didn't like how it was done. I didn't get sucked in. I watched it once, so maybe it can't be done again. But I just think that you could pick anybody, any unit, any different nationalities, and I'd follow a few whole seasons of that,
They're doing, I think it was Air Force, 8th Air Force. I think they're doing the same type of series like Band of Brothers.
Okay, so that would be welcome. And if they do it well, again, history is what it is, but also how it's portrayed can be kind of,
exactly
glamorized or whatever, but that's okay. And so that's interesting. But and then the only other thing I thought of was Warhammer Fantasy. I mean, there's unlimited lore there. The only pause I ever have with fantasy, kind of going back to even the Lord of the Rings thing, where I was, the movies came out and I was a huge fan of the books. I mean, I read them in middle school. That was back. This is funny. I didn't even know it was a trilogy, and my mom suggested I read them. So I went to the library at the middle school, and the one that they had was the third book. And I didn't know you had to read them in order. So I read the Return of the King first.
Wow.
I
And
feel
then
like
I'm
I've missed
oh.
something.
Well, yeah, it took me a while to figure it out, but then I went back and read the first two. But anyway, I read them, multiple times through the years growing up, and then I was so excited for the movies, which I did enjoy, but and I love even more now. But I'm trying to even remember how I visualized it. It's like that's been erased. I've watched because when you read a book, you have your own images of how it looks and how
Yes.
how their voices are, and I remember the first time I watched them, like, well, that isn't at all the way I pictured this and that. So I came out a little bit almost disappointed. It was my first impression. And then, now I've grown to where they'd be one of the top fantasy movies I would rate. But the interesting thing is now I found myself even five or 8 years ago trying to remember how my experience was when I read those books, back then, how I visual, and I can't. Now all I picture is the damn movies now,
Yeah.
which
That's
is
true.
So to go off
unfortunate.
of that, what you're saying, Dan, is that I watched the animated Hobbit back.
Yeah,
in
I did too.
the
Way
70s
back.
when I was
Yes.
in middle school, and and I have that imagery in my head
Okay.
of the Lord of the Rings. So when I'm reading all these, when I read the Hobbit, and then I read
Mhm.
the Lord of the Rings and Silmarillion, I have those dwarves, those hobbits, those elves
Okay.
all in my head. And then when the movies came out, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. See, but I
I'm
read
kind
the
of a-
books. I read the books first, so that was my first, and then I'm like, oh, this is cool. Oh, they have VHS of this out. I can watch it. So then, yeah, I got those when I was a little bit older, but so then I'm always a little hesitant, even with fantasy. I know there's all the imagery out there, which is part of where I'm getting my my mental picture of what the world is. It's still going to be not quite. I guess it's almost one of those things. I'd almost. It's like finding out there's no Santa Claus. It's
What? Wait,
it's
what?
sorry, yeah, cover your ears, Dwayne.
I watched the 70s Hobbit, and for me, I'm glad they wiped my memory of it, to be honest, because when I see like the wood elves, like from like the Hobbit,
Yeah.
it's like it's like, I don't like the dwarf, and it's like with these voice actors, and they're
Yeah.
horrible looking, like in my mind.
Yeah.
Now, granted, like if that's all you had and it's nostalgic, I get that.
Right.
But I love the movies so much. Even having read the books first, I love the movie so much that I'm glad they wiped my memory clean of like the animation from the 70s. To be honest, that's me
but
personally.
they wiped my memory of the book, which that's
different.
that's your personal like thing,
That's
that was
different.
not somebody else's art; it was mine.
Yeah,
and it's gone.
They took
And that
the
I can
Etch-a-Sketch
understand that.
Shook it up.
Yeah.
Now the interesting thing is, they're going to do a Morgoth movies of the like from the Silmarillion. They're bringing
Really?
that to the big screen.
Oh, I did hear something about that. I kind of forgot.
Yeah, that just came out a couple weeks ago that they're going to do that. And I
Mhm.
seen that, I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, I heard something about that.
So I'm going to be very happy with that. And they also have a Lord of the Rings TV series coming out too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I heard that.
yeah, I heard that. That's still hard. I don't know. Us old guys, I guess, when you get nostalgic, it's just. I mean, that's why I play the old games, and I like the old miniatures. Maybe the new ones are better, but I can't. I haven't bought anything new from Games Workshop in 20 years. I just except some paints. I do buy some of their paints, but I just can't. They just don't grab. Some of them are pretty. Some of them are cool. They're almost tempting. It's not even in spite of them because I don't like them. It's just it doesn't quite. It's gone down a different path from where I am.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you finally came to your senses.
Yeah, I've matured finally.
I agree with you with the games. I think when it comes to the Lord of the Rings, I could see Dan like typing on Facebook when they're coming out with a new movie. What is it that you think you're doing with touching this medium?
Yes, hands off. This is sacred ground.
You have no right.
No,
But I
it's
agree
good.
with
It's
the
just a thought
game.
that I had. Plus, I'm thinking, well, like just going back to the Warhammer Fantasy, I don't know that they would do it in the way that I was picturing it in my head. And like my Bretonnians, of course, are 5th edition Bretonnians and not 6th edition Bretonnians. which are the noble ones, right? You know, so
Yeah, they
where the
totally
peasants
changed
can,
them,
yeah. And so I never bought a single 6th edition thing. I just couldn't go down that road. For me personally.
When the trilogy came out for Lord of the Rings, like the Jackson
Mm-hmm.
one, what was your thought when you came out of like the first movie, Fellowship of the Ring?
I was incredibly impressed with this, you know, with the special effects, the acting, the display was amazing. I guess I came out a little bit like it was like almost like a spin-off almost, you know what I mean? Just because, and I even read the book, you know, because I knew when we were going to the movie theater to see it. So I read the book like the week or two before, and I mean, it was fresh in my mind. And, you know, and of course I got hung up a little bit once in a while. It's like, oh, they left this out or that out. It didn't affect the story. You know, it was very inclusive, very well done. It just, like the goblins were not of Moria, were not at all what I envisioned. And it just, you know, just too much of it was not what I envisioned. So I did come out, I was so pumped to see it. I wouldn't say disappointed, just kind of, it was like you saw something that was like, a spinoff, you know, with the same story, sort of a generic version of because nothing beats what you put in your head, you know, as far as your own imagery and the way their voices sound and the armor, like the Gondor soldiers, that wasn't at all what I pictured their armor being like. And you know, I was just like, what?
well,
Dan,
that is the problem.
Did you ever see the calendars, Lord of the Rings calendars from 1977 and 78?
I did. Yeah.
Hildebrandt brothers did the artwork for that. That was my image of Lord of the Rings back when I was reading the books. That artwork that they did, that was Lord of the Rings. And you remember how the orcs were presented?
Yes.
And that's how I envision them. So when you watch the movie, I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's just
not the same. It's
not the same
at all.
It's like watching. Yeah, they're doing the same things, but it's not, and it's the same story, but it's like almost a separate thing. But now my memory's been wiped clean, like a good soldier. And
go back and look at those calendar pictures. You know, that'll help.
That was some good art.
See, for me, my knowledge base up to that point was the cartoons, but then I grew up in a D&D environment. And so when I read the books, I was also playing D&D. So in my mind, when they talked about elves, like I was thinking all of like the artwork from D&D, like in a lot of ways that like early D&D, like, and so in a lot of ways, that's what I would think about. And then when the movies came out, to be honest, I didn't really think heavily about the armor from Gondor, you know, but when I thought of like the goblins or the elves, it didn't really disappoint me. Like, as a matter of fact, I was kind of amazed by it. Like, I really was impressed with it.
It was quite a production. I mean, it was cutting edge, and it's still, even how old is it now? I mean, what did it come out in 2000, the first one or something?
Yeah.
And
2000, then 2001, 2003.
Yeah. And it was like, I mean, it holds its own now yet. I mean, there's those few scenes with Legolas doing some weird stuff that catches me every time. That's, you know, inhuman stuff he's doing that bothers me. But otherwise, it's incredible.
There are certain books that...
Yeah, but it defies anything.
I'm sure everybody has an example of that.
Today where Viggo Mortensen is the same age right now that was the guy that played Gandalf.
Gandalf?
Ian McKellen?
Yeah.
He's the same age now that he was when he made the...
That'd be that's a lot of years gone by.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like 20... We're talking 21 years.
21
wow.
years.
It's like amazing.
Yeah, and I collected the action figures. I went to McDonald's and got those glass mugs that you could get that lit up. I still have them in the box. I mean, I was and then I got the Lord of the Rings. I pre-ordered that's the last things I bought from Games Workshop. They had a box set that came out each year. Do you remember? There was the green one for that movie, and then the red one for the second, and the blue for I still have it. And I mean, I was all in. And then of course, then my kids were born. Yeah. So that was done. But But yeah, I enjoyed that it was, because back then you couldn't even find fantasy genre movies or shows, barely. I mean, there were a few, Dragon Slayer and some of the different ones, but there wasn't much. That was huge. So I was all in.
It's like it reset it, though. My perception of it seems to be that when Conan sort of came out, there was an 80s sort of trend of fantasy, and that died off after a while.
Yes.
I think then the Lord of the Rings came out, and it was sort of like that generation's version of Conan. If I can interpret correctly, you have to remember I was born in the late 80s, so my experience at Conan was VHS tapes or late night movies. But that seems to be the perception of it is it sort of waxes and wanes. It's somebody will take a gamble on a big hit, like when we were talking about the games earlier. Innovation coming from maybe smaller companies, and then everybody sort of jumps on the bandwagon. That's how I felt.
Game of Thrones was kind of like
that's true.
A later generation of it, right? Like after Lord of the Rings, like there was a kind of a dead period eventually that it went into, and then Game of Thrones came out. And like I would argue, there are a lot of people that would never touch fantasy with a 10-foot pole, but actually watched it because of Game of Thrones. Like they actually enjoyed it.
Don't they have to get? Don't they have to get 2 licenses to do that? Games Workshop. From Lord of the Rings, the estate, and then from Peter Jackson or whoever. It's 2 separate licenses, right? Yeah, that's
probably that's gonna, killer.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to keep that game going. Sorry, Dwayne, I cut you off there.
But they have for a while, right? Like how long have they been doing Lord of the Rings stuff now?
But they're not releasing. They just started again releasing some new stuff, but mostly they're just bringing the old miniatures back. Those are the same goblins that you could get in 2000, and those plastic ones were garbage then, and they're still garbage. And they charge $1 million for a box of garbage.
Yeah. But the point, though, I'm just making is it's been a successful game, like as a game goes, a specialist game, and it's been going on how long now?
And that's the reason GW brought it back, because it had such a strong following. I mean, it is a good system. There's no doubt.
It seems to be one of those games that was kind of abandoned by Games Workshop to a certain extent. They weren't putting as much focus in it, but the fan base kept it going.
Yeah, well, I think they ran out of stuff to do. They released miniatures that weren't in the movie, and they kind of just kept going out and then mounted and dismounted. I mean, they just went down every road that there wasn't. I don't know that they could expanded it too much more. But the fact that they quit supporting it is where the bitterness comes in. You couldn't buy the stuff anymore. If they would just produce it and you could buy the same old thing, that would have been fine. But they just we're done.
Yeah, that's one of the problems with Games Workshop was that they would, if they're no longer producing new stuff, eventually they phase it out because they think no one's buying it.
Or whatever.
Or there's not enough demand that they consider it worth producing more. Even though people are buying it, it reaches a level where there's like, oh, it's just not producing enough.
It's a business decision. I mean, I get that.
But that's players' perception as well. If there's not constantly new stuff coming out for a game,
it's a dead game.
It's dead. Yeah. It's dead. Nobody plays this anymore. It's like, what? Calm down.
Yeah.
Nobody's kicking in the door to take what miniatures you have. The game's not dead if you're still playing it.
I know. I always think that's true. And that's, again, Lord of the Rings was one of those games that they managed to keep alive all those years as a fan base.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a very large base for Lord of the Rings, which is why I think Games Workshop's, because they're still tapping into it. It was resurged a little bit with the Hobbit series when it came out. Then it probably went down again. But now that they got the new movie coming in the works, and then that TV series is supposed to be happening, that could cause them to have another resurgence of.
Which is part of why I think that they kind of they redid the rules, which are almost the same. They've improved them. They did a good job there, I think. And then I don't know if they'll start producing actual new miniatures. So far, they're not really that I've seen for it. But
the only thing they could do is
on the miniatures.
If they start producing something new, that they go to the east, and get new areas where they start producing that. There's nothing in the movies with it There's no models, so they could actually produce their own line of miniatures that are not connected. And they probably could be brought in and used with their own fantasy stuff too. So
That's possible.
Yeah.
Well, and then they had the trouble when the Hobbit movie came out. They wanted to make that into a miniature game, and that was very limiting because really all you had was the Battle of the Five Armies there at the end. And
yeah,
I mean, you know, there's only so much they could do with that. But boy, they dumped a lot of money. There were rule books and faction books, and just for basically that one battle. I mean, yeah, you can have you know, your own hypothetical battles and stuff, but it was pretty limiting. And I don't know if they came out very good on that. And then that was such a small blip on the radar, and that died. You know, the excitement faded out, and a lot of people, I don't think, enjoyed that movie near as much as the trilogy, of course. So
No, it wasn't the same.
so I think they got kind of. I don't know if they came out too good on that one.
and they had the Goblin Town box set that was.
Oh yeah,
that was like looked at it and go, nope, don't want anything of that.
and all that terrain that came up. Yeah, it was interesting, but yeah, I didn't buy any of that. But
I wouldn't buy that for $1.
50 cents.
Hey, oh, was it RoboCop? I'll buy that for $1.
$1.
All right.
Well,
My favorite version of the Lord of the Rings game that they made was Legends of the Old West.
Oh yes, that's a good Western game.
That,
I'm waiting for Bill to say what I meant to say is that wasn't my favorite game.
No, I do like that game, and I don't know why they don't do something with that, because it is just Lord of the Rings.
Wow.
I have copies of that, and it does look really good. And I've never played it, but I've seen the YouTube channel Gorilla Miniature Games do some
It
of
is a
that.
nice series.
And it was, yeah, it looked like a lot of fun. And they had a lot of different factions and things.
Have you
Was that
played
the
it,
guy that
Bill?
used to be with Mini Wargaming?
Yes. Ash?
Ash, that's it.
Yeah. Have you played it, Bill?
yeah.
Did you like it or you didn't care for it?
I think that well, the mechanics of the Lord of the Rings are definitely there.
Yeah.
I think the bread and butter of those rules are the campaign rules, where you can actually build your gang up,
Agreed. Yeah.
hire new guns, and all sorts of stuff.
Yep.
That is where it's at. Where other Western games these days are just falling short.
hmm
Wow.
What's your favorite Western game, if you had to pick one right now?
I like. I know it sounds silly, but Dracula's America.
Okay.
Riding right now, but just like, but if I hold it up against, the Legends of the Old West, the campaign system of it doesn't hold a candle to it.
Okay.
But the mechanics are better.
Okay. Interesting. I've heard good things about that, but I don't know anything about that game.
It's 2 games in 1. So the first part of the book is all the mechanics of the game, where you can actually play the game as a historical gunfight game. And then the second half of the book, you can add all the supernatural stuff.
Okay. I didn't know that. I was always hesitant because I thought, well, if it's all supernatural, maybe, I wanted kind of just a straight Western, spaghetti Western thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you can add as much as you want
Cool.
to it, or you can have none of it and just run with just the Western stuff.
I'll have to give it a closer look.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind looking at it too. I don't want another game in some ways. In some ways, I'm afraid to, because I don't want another game to get sucked into and a whole nother set of miniatures and a whole nother set of terrain. But I've always viewed the Western environment as like the holy grail, because I've always found something wrong with every one I've looked at, to the point that even without playing it, it's like sort of Dwayne mentioned earlier, like you kind of need to play it to kind of get an appreciation. I agree with that, but I couldn't get past the rules on most of them, because I've always wanted, ideally, like, I've always had one thing that I wanted. Either I didn't want it to be too Hollywood, like based on like the movies, or I didn't want it to, I wanted it to have like a lot of the different kind of factions that you could have, like, and some of them wouldn't have them as much, like they'd be more focused on like gunfighters traditionally, but not like, let's say, banditos or something like that. And then some of them wouldn't really allow you to do much character creation, or some of them, just every single one I looked at, I kind of found like, oh, I just not sure that I want this. And so maybe that's, I should probably take a look at that just to see. In that one, can you kind of create your own band and create rules around it as far as tailor it?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds interesting.
So, my background is a little bit different. My interest is in the old samurai movies and old spaghetti westerns, and honestly, that drives a lot of my miniature gaming. So I like samurai skirmish games, and I like gunfighting games because of that reason. I love those movies. And so it's the opposite of this topic, but those movies made me interested in those type of games.
Yeah. And it's funny, we actually have done the opposite of the topic. When Rusty and I were talking about this a while ago, we did a whole show on what is like the movie you want to turn into a game. And this is the show. This is the show of what is the game you want to turn into a movie. So
Well, yeah, I reckon movies and media and such of that sort are a big influence, because I do honestly reckon that going to my grandparents after school when I was younger and sitting down and watching the old war films, that's what got me into wargaming, most likely. You know what I mean? Like Von Ryan's Express and Tora 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 and The Bridge Too Far, and seeing all those films on the TV. I think that's what sparked my interest in it. So there's a lot of crossover.
Same here for me. It's like I watched all those old movies, from the 40s, 50s, and 60s and 70s. Watching them all whenever they came out. Some of them I've seen in the theater.
Wow.
Back in the day.
Samurai, Magnificent Seven, Yojimbo, Fistful of Dollars. There's crossovers throughout that area. Well,
we are actually well through at this topic. I think we've discussed it quite a bit, and Curtis is yawning. And we're typically our shows are typically 2 hours. We're hitting the 2.5 hour mark, but
nice.
I think we've covered this one pretty well. Would you say, Rusty?
Oh yeah, we've done a good job. Got off a lot of tangents, different directions.
Absolutely, and lots of having fun, and of course, it's all in fun. And so, thanks everybody for not only joining the chat, but thank you to all of the 4 individuals that on fairly short notice came out to join us to sort of celebrate the end of our season of the Musty Wargamers. We really enjoy. Actually, I don't know, as much as Rusty and I love doing this, I don't think that the show would be nearly as good as as much fun as it is. If we didn't have all the folks that are in the chat and then you guys coming out, and being special guests and stuff, it just really adds to it too. Wouldn't you say, Rusty?
Oh yeah,
and
a lot of fun. Always enjoy having you guys back on. It's always a good show.
So thanks for joining our season 4 celebration bash, and we will see you in the season 5
sometime in probably September.
Yeah, that's typically when we start.
And Wave 2 will have been here for the Kickstarter. Huh?
Oh yeah. We're going to see the big unboxing of our other stuff.
A little bit in there.
I finished it.
One more BattleTech. One more BattlTech. You have to now. You have to lick the inside of the glass, Rusty.
I'm all out.
I'll be buried under a sea of plastic mix. It'll be glorious.
That's all you see is a pair of eyeballs sticking out of the plastic pile.
It's the periscope.
Isn't it 4 a.m. for you, Dwayne, or something? 4 or 5?
It's it's 5:28 a.m. here.
Oh Lord, crazy!
Kind of like
That's
me this morning.
to the cause.
What a trooper!
This morning when I'd stayed up all night because the solar eclipse was happening at 5:40 this morning, So instead of going to bed, I usually go to bed 2 or 3. Like, screw it. I'm just going to stay up. So.
Well, like I said, Dwayne is timeless. He looks the same as when we started the show, and it looked the same in 12 hours. So
They look the same in September when we come
That's
back.
awesome.
that's right.
I have bags under my eyes just from opening boxes.
Still there
Not even
waiting.
painting miniatures, just opening boxes.
Well, thanks for everybody for joining in the chat. Thanks for everybody, and
Yeah.
we will see you in season 5.
All right.
Yeah.
See you
Good night,
all
everybody.
in about 3 months over on Palmer's channel.
I'll have to remember that.
Well, you always start the season, I end the season. That's how it
There we
always
go.
works. right.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks,
everybody.
guys, for being on. Enjoyed it. We'll see you again this fall. And hopefully one of you guys will be on the show again. Starts when we get the season going.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Great crap
All right.
as always.
Later on.
Cheers.
Take care.
Toodaloo.